Please ensure to the speakers that you will mute, and when you're speaking, you will unmute.
Yes, thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're almost there. It's 9:59, and I will hand over to Kurt. Thank you, and all the best.
Good morning, colleagues. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Good morning, colleagues, distinguished guests, researchers, academics, and all our participants. It is my pleasure to welcome you on today's research seminar. We are delighted that you have joined us as we come together to share ideas, engage in meaningful conversations, and reflect on the role of research in creating knowledge, driving innovation, and making a positive impact. Today, today's seminar is held under the theme Future Ready Scholars Beyond Research Towards Impact. This theme reminds us that research is not only about generating knowledge, but also about how we translate knowledge into solutions that contribute to society and shape the future. We have an exciting program ahead with insightful presentations and discussions that will inspire us to think differently about research, collaboration, and impact. Before we open our session, may I please go over a few of the house rules. Please keep your microphones muted unless if you're invited to speak, or so that we can avoid background noise and disruptions. Can you please use the chat box for questions, comments, and relevant contributions related to the session? You may submit your questions through the chat. My colleagues will and the facilitator will guide you or will answer to the questions. And can we please not interrupt the speakers? We must allow them to complete their presentations, and then we can ask questions after each speaker has finished their presentation. And we encourage that you switch off your cameras if possible and your mics, and you switch them on when we take your questions. And I would like to encourage everyone to participate, ask questions, contribute to these meaningful discussions. Now, to officially open our session and share a few words of welcome, I would like to invite Dr. Nonhlanhla Ngobo, who is our library director, to deliver a welcome note. Dr. Nonhlanhla Ngobo is the director of UKZN Library Services. She holds a PhD in Information Studies and Master's degree in Information Studies from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Her library career started at eThekwini Metro Library, where she held various leadership roles. She has occupied academic library leadership positions for over 20 years. She is an active liaison member, having served as the KZN branch chair-elect from 2014 to 2016 and branch chair from 2016 to 2018. She has also presented at national and international conferences on key LIS issues. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Nonhlanhla Ngobo. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Honored guests, distinguished colleagues, researchers, scholars, and students. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's seminar titled Future Ready Scholars Beyond Research Toward Impact. Today, we gather around a simple but urgent idea. Knowledge is not the finish line, it's the starting block. The papers we publish, the prototypes we build, and the data we analyze matter enormously. But their true value is measured by the lives they touch, the systems they improve, and the futures they unlock. We gather not merely to celebrate scholarship, but to examine and commit to its highest purpose, translating rigorous inquiry into measurable, positive change for society. In an age of rapid technological, environmental, and societal transformation, being a scholar today means more than producing knowledge. It means anticipating tomorrow's challenges, engaging communities, and delivering solutions that are equitable, scalable, and sustained. The theme, Future Ready Scholars, calls on us to cultivate researchers who are adaptive, interdisciplinary, and impact-oriented. Future-ready scholars combine deep disciplinary expertise with skills in collaboration, communication, ethical reasoning, and applied problem-solving. They are prepared to translate findings into policy, practice, and enterprise, to work across sectors and to center societal needs, especially those of marginalized communities, in their work. In short, they are scholars who measure success not only by publications, but by real-world outcomes, improved health, stronger institutions, resilient environments, and enhanced quality of life. We stand at a pivotal moment. Complex challenges, climate resilience, equitable health, food security, ethical AI, inclusive growth demand more than isolated excellence. They call for scholars who can translate insight into outcomes, who can move fluidly between the laboratory, the community, and the policy-making table, who see collaboration not as a concession, but as a catalyst. They call for courage to test ideas in the real world, to learn from failure, and to iterate until solutions work for those who need them most. This gathering is designed with that spirit in mind, to elevate research that is not only that is not only rigorous, but also relevant and ready, to build bridges across disciplines, sectors, and geographies that turn findings into feasible, scalable interventions, to equip scholars with practical tools, stakeholder engagement, entrepreneurship, policy translation, data stewardship, and communication for diverse audiences, to celebrate impact that is inclusive, ethical, and sustainable. Over the course of this seminar, our distinguished guests will hear examples of research that has crossed the threshold from knowledge to impact, learn strategies for meaningful community and industry engagement, and explore ways academic institutions can better support translational work. I encourage each and every one of you to engage actively, ask questions, share your experiences, and consider how your work can move beyond discovery towards tangible benefits. Let this be our collective charge, that we ask deeper questions, we design with communities, we measure what matters, and refuse to stop at interesting when impactful is within reach. If we do that together, we won't just anticipate the future, we'll help shape it. Thank you for joining us in this vital conversation. Together, let us strengthen the bridge from scholarship to societal impact and prepare the next generation of scholars to meet the future with insight, integrity, and purpose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ngobo, for the warm and insightful welcome notes. We truly appreciate you setting the tone for today's session and highlighting the importance of our theme. And your words have reminded us of the role that we all play in supporting research, innovation, and meaningful impacts within our community or academic community. Thank you for taking the time to welcome and inspire our participants. Our next presentation will focus on the important role of the library in supporting research, teaching, learning, and scholarly engagement. To take us through this presentation, I would like to introduce my colleague, Ms. Minentle Jali, who is a subject librarian, and she is based at Howard College campus. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Minentle to the platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Nontobeko, and you can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Lovely. Good morning, colleagues. As Ononto has said, I am here to present the UKZN Library Services ecosystem, empowering research from creation to impact. So today we are going to explore how the library services support research throughout the entire research lifecycle, from the idea being conceived through discovery, publication, preservation, and ultimately the research impact. Okay, so research is no longer just about producing knowledge, it's also about ensuring that the knowledge is discoverable, accessible, preserved, and able to influence the society. Now, the library plays a critical role in every stage of this journey, and we are hoping as the library that at the end of this presentation, you will have a clear understanding of how the various library departments and services work together to help you become a future-ready scholar. We first have our acquisitions department. Now, the research journey begins with access to information. The acquisitions department ensures that the scholars have access to the resources that they need to conduct high quality research. And how do they ensure this? They support by selecting and acquiring print and electronic resources, databases, journals, and ebooks. They also manage the subscriptions and the licenses. They also maintain the transformative agreements, and they ensure that the current authoritative information is available. Now, how does this help you with your research? Without access to current literature, research cannot be effective. And through acquisitions, scholars gain access to world-class databases, journals, ebooks, and research tools that provide the foundation for literature reviews, evidence gathering, and knowledge creation. Simply put, acquisitions ensures that the researchers have the right information at the right time. Then we have our cataloging department. Now, once you've acquired the knowledge or the information, it needs to be organized and made discoverable. And that's where our cataloging department comes into play. They create the metadata and classification records that make the library resources easy to find. And they do this by creating accurate bibliographic and authoritative records. They apply subject headings and classification. They enhance discoverability in the iCatalog and discoverable tools, and they support metadata quality in our institutional repositories. And this helps researchers spend less time searching and more time researching. Well-organized metadata ensures that the books, journals, thesis, and digital resources can be located quickly and accurately. In today's information-rich environment, discoverability is essential, and cataloging makes that possible. Then we have the circulation department, which connects the researchers with the library resources. And they do this by providing the services where they lend books and physical material, where they support and assist with interlibrary loans and intercampus loans and document delivery, and they also assist in providing access to study areas and equipment. And this helps you scholars because research often requires immediate access to information. The circulation team ensures that researchers can obtain material effectively even when resources cannot be located in your campus, in other words, in other UKZN campuses, and even in other institutions as a whole. By facilitating access to collection, technology, and study environment, circulation supports productivity and successful research outcomes. And then we have our librarians, who are your partners in research across your scholarly life cycle. Now, the librarians, they assist you in teaching you with experts, or they provide expert literature searching and research consultations. They also provide guidance in research data management. They train you in information retrieval and research tools, and they also teach you about impact tracking and research metrics. Now, with all of these services provided by the librarians, this helps you scholars find quality information faster. It helps you develop effective research strategies. It helps you manage your references effectively, and it also helps you avoid predatory publishing practices. The librarian's role saves the researcher's time and it enhances the quality of their research outputs. And from the librarians, you then get the research support services, which help scholars move beyond information discovery to research impact. Now, as the library, we support you in publishing responsibly, and we also help you increase your visibility and impact of your research by guiding you with open access publishing, with our transformative agreements, with assistance with journal selection supports and author workshops. We also assist you with your org ID registrations, your Scopus profiles, and impact tools. We also provide access or assistance with preserving and granting access to long-term supply of your research. And with these research support services, we help you build your academic identity, increase your citation potential, track your research performance, and enhance global visibility. And with these research support services, we help transform research outputs into research impact. And then we have our institutional repositories called Research Space and Yabelana that focus in preserving and amplifying research. Now, we deposit and preserve the research outputs in form of thesis and dissertations in research space. We also promote the sharing of research data in our institutional repository called Yabelana, which uses the FAIR principles. And with these repositories, we increase your possibility or your chances of discoverability and global reach. And these institutional repositories ensure long-term access and compliance. And with our institutional repositories, we are supporting the Open Access Initiative, and we also improve or assist you to improve your compliance with funder and institutional requirements. By depositing work in research space and Yabelana, scholars increase the likelihood of the research to be discovered, read, downloaded, and cited. With our institutional repositories, we extend the life and the reach of your research far beyond publication. And with all of that being said, going back to the research life cycle, the researcher remains as the center of the ecosystem with the different various library departments contributing the specialized expertise. With acquisitions, you get provided access. Cataloging enables discovery. Circulation facilitates use. Librarians provide guidance. Research support services enhance visibility and impact. Research space and Yabelana preserve and amplify your research output. Together, these services create an integrated support system and that empowers researchers from the first idea to lasting impact. The library is therefore not just a service provider, but a strategic partner in your research excellence. Whether you are in the beginning stage of your research project, or you are publishing your findings, or you are seeking to increase your research impact, the library is here to support you in every step of the way. We look forward to partnering with you in your research journey. And with that, I thank you. And I will take any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Nendle. Thank you for the very informative presentation and for sharing valuable insights on the library's role in services. We appreciate your contribution and the support that you continue to provide to our academic community. We can take 1 or 2 questions for Minente.
There are no questions. I'm assuming everything was clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next speaker is Prof. Onesimo Mutanga. His topic is strategic positioning for competitive research grants and the peer review process. Prof. Mutanga is a professor of remote sensing and South African research chair in land use. His expertise focuses on resource modeling, ecosystem monitoring, disaster risk assessment, invasive species modeling, and land use change. He has published in over 300 journals. He has published over 300 journal articles with more than 12,000 citations and is a recipient of several prestigious awards, including the NSTF South 32 Awards. Please help me welcome Prof. Mutanga. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the warm introduction. I'm just going to give an overview of the topic that I've been given on competitive grants and also touching on the peer review process. Let me try to share my presentation. Can you see it?
Yes, we can, Prof.
Yes, Prof, we can see.
Okay, excellent. Right. Is it in presentation mode now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you very much. I think all of us, we are aware that the funding landscape is dwindling all over the world. You can see that most of the Western world countries, they are now looking inward. Each man for himself. So you would find out that the sources of funding that we used to get, the channels that we used to get, most of them have now been, blocked. We are now scrambling for very few funding opportunities that are available. And what is required now is to make sure that as an institution and as academics, we strategically position ourselves so that we can tap into those few funding opportunities that are available. So my talk will just touch on some of the tips that we need to pay attention to in order to strategically position ourselves to get that funding. It's affecting everyone, and even here in South Africa, you see that even the national funding pot is also under pressure, and we are not getting what we used to get. So we need to look into the third stream income opportunities in order for our university to be sustainable in the near future. And this strategic positioning is actually at both institutional level and also at individual level. Can an institution like UKZN be strategically positioned to attract funding? When someone, a donor outside there, hears of UKZN, can he willingly provide funding for such an institution? Which means we have to be clean. We have to be known to be people who can actually use that funding productively in order to benefit society. So institutional capacity and systems are very important for that. We also need to align with funding priorities. What do these funders expect us to provide? And we also need to strengthen our collaborative networks. So these are some of the key priority areas that I'll touch on in my presentation. In terms of institutional capacities and systems, what is important is, I'm not sure the audience here, but I'm assuming that most of them are emerging researchers who would want to know how best we can attract funding. You need to set your own vision. What do you want to be known for in the next 5 to 10 years? What is your expertise? You can't be a jack of all trades. If you're known for something, then it means when someone hears of an area that needs investigation, then they say, oh no, there's UKZN that is focusing on this particular aspect, and then they can approach you. So you need to develop clear-cut research agenda or flagships that are critical and that are known and that are relevant to the current day society. And you leverage on the strengths that you have as an institution or as an individual. For example, in my field, it's mainly around climate resilience, climate adaptation, the impact, monitoring the impact of climate change, and how we can adapt to those changes. And if there are any approaches to mitigate that impact. So all that monitoring process is critical for the society. And if you are known for that particular area, if there are funders who are willing to fund in that particular area, then they can identify you as an individual, or they can identify you as an institution in order to support you. But as an institution also, as I said earlier on, you need to be clean. And you also need to set systems in place that can facilitate that grantsmanship. Example is a dedicated grant writing office that can respond to calls and train of emerging researchers. There are some institutions that actually have a dedicated office that only looks at funding opportunities and targets individuals within the system, trying to match them so that they can assist them in application for those grants. And there's serious investment in grant writing and review systems, which is very critical if we want to attract funding at an international level. Also develop project and grants management systems with a transparent financial accounting system. Having a clean audit every time is very critical. For those projects that are existing within an institution, is very important. No one would want to put his money where it's going to be abused. So having a clean audit, being clean in whatever you do in terms of financial management will be very critical. But also the streamlining of processes and removal of unnecessary redundancies or red tapes within the system. You get a project being funded by an external institution, and then it takes a year for it to be approved at the institution. Next time, they won't come to that same institution because of these red tapes. Establishment of a strong monitoring and evaluation system is also very critical for accountability purposes. If there is a project that we have taken as an institution, or even as an individual that you are running, do you have a monitoring and evaluation system in place so that you can assess the success or problems that are within that particular project progress, so that at least intervention measures can be put in place? That is very critical. Another aspect that is very critical when you're attracting grants is to align with the funding priorities. There are a number of funding agencies that have got their different agendas. And if you want a grant proposal to be successful, then it has to be assessed based on various funding priorities. And they look at relevance of the project, they look at the quality of the project, and also they look at the impact. I think impact has been touched on during the initial presentations this morning. It's very critical. I'll come back to these issues a bit later on. So what you need as an individual when you're looking at these funding organizations is to map the funders' agenda. What do they expect? For example, Wellcome Trusts, Danida, DFID, what are their expectations? Then you align your proposals to those priorities. But you also need to focus on the development-linked themes, as well as national and international priorities. For example, we've got the AU 2063 agenda. We've got the UN Sustainable Development Goals. How do that proposal that you are putting in place linked to these development goals? How do they align to these development goals? It's not a matter of just mentioning them. It's a matter of demonstrating how this proposal's outcome will impact on some of these development goals. So as an example of alignment with the funders, the Wellcome Trust, for example, is mainly interested in climate change and impact on health. That's their main focus. So when you are putting a proposal to the Wellcome Trust, when there is a call for funding, then you have to align yourself to some of these aspects. How climate change is affecting our health, and how can we use this information to develop practical and affordable solutions in the places where they are most needed. So various health outcomes as a result of climate change is very critical for Wellcome Trust projects. We've got a big project that is funded by Wellcome Trust at the moment, Sustainable Health Systems, Food Systems, and it's focusing on these aspects of climate change, health, and the environment. Funder identification and also diversification. When you look at your area of investigation and then you match that with the funders' niche area and agendas, do they marry? That's what you need. That's when you now do the selection of various funders to approach, so that at least what you are interested in has got the chances of success. You identify the funders that align with the research priorities, which are mapped according to the level of project scope, and also the applicants. And these are at various scales, these funders at various scales. So you've got government research funders, your NRF, your Water Research Commission, the various municipalities, government organizations, they do fund research. There are multilateral organizations, for example, the World Bank, the World Health Organizations, the charity foundations, the Gates Foundation, Wellcome Trust, Oppenheimer, which mainly focus on the societal impact. So when you're going after these funders, then you have to look at the practical application of your research. That's what they focus on. It's not mainstream fundamental research. There are organizations that also support mainstream fundamental research. But then when you're going after these, like the Gates Foundation, then you have to make sure that your project has got a serious societal impact. The private sector is also very important. Leverage on corporate social responsibility programs from the private companies, mining companies, and these ones, they focus on the industrial relevance. How is that particular project going to enhance their industrial production, and how the social responsibility will also be covered through that particular work. Then they will be willing to fund that particular project. But also need to promote very strong research collaboration. Strong collaboration with the industry, strong collaboration with the municipalities, strong collaboration with international organizations is very critical in creating a critical mass, so that when you come to application for big grants, then you've got that transdisciplinary, network of people that you can use to leverage on application for these big grants. So as an individual, you should be in a position to ingress yourself within various interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary programs and networks, so that you position yourself in a competitive advantage in terms of applying for research grants. You've got a network already, so it will be very easy to populate a group of people that you can work with to execute a project. I just gave an example of the DIRA partnership that we have with the eThekwini municipality here, which has been going on for the past 10 years now, where we've got very strong relationship with the municipality in terms of identifying problems, identifying research areas, and with UKZN bringing in students and research scientists who can address those issues, and we get funding through that process. And at the end of the day, the municipality also benefits with the products, scientific products that we produce as a result of that research partnership. We also need to build and join large consortium, connecting African universities to funding opportunities. For example, the Global Health Network Africa, the ARUA, very important. The EU Horizon has got networks, African Development Bank, they've got network. There are consortia that are focusing on research and grants, and being part and parcel of those networks will actually assist you in terms of getting grants for your research. So you need to develop a critical mass of expertise and infrastructure that transcends individual contributions. That is very critical. When you're applying for grants, you don't go solo. It's just not possible. So you need to transcend the individual contributions, be involved in those transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary networks in order to be successful in obtaining grants. Now, let me just zoom into the grant proposals themselves, because it's no use to have all these without producing a solid proposal that is acceptable. And as indicated earlier on, it's measured on quality, it's measured on relevance, and it's also measured on impact when you're writing the grant proposal. Of course, various funding organizations will have their own specifications, but these are the general expectations when you're writing a proposal. In terms of the quality, you're looking at originality and innovation in generating new knowledge. Your research questions and the hypotheses that you set, they must be innovative in nature and focus on cutting-edge research trends. What is trending at the moment in your field of expertise? What is trending? What is it that is cutting edge, that is excitable to the funders? Like in my field right now, in remote sensing, we've got GeoAI, Geo-Artificial Intelligence. It's quite trending at the moment, and that's the direction that the research is going towards. And we can actually generate new knowledge around that area in order to improve the methodologies that we use in understanding the terrestrial ecosystems. So you need a well-designed project with clear methodological and theoretical frameworks, and also need to populate a good team of investigators who can assist in producing very high quality, innovative proposals in your team. Relevance, alignment with the core theme, as I indicated, national and international development priorities, as I indicated earlier on. Well defined with respect to ongoing research in the field of investigation and the country of origin. Well suited for the socio-economic, political, and institutional context, including the security situation, which means your proposal has to be context specific. You cannot go around and start to do a project which is not suited to the direction that the society is going in that particular area. You'll have serious resistance. That will give you a number of problems. So you need to understand the socio-economic status of that environment that you're working on when you're doing that proposal development. Impact, direct effects with respect to the selected sustainable development goals, which I've mentioned. Zero hunger, those are some of them. Gender equality, etc., climate action. Positioning for direct use through the science action and science policy divide. I think from the earlier presentation we heard about this, that if your research is not speaking directly to benefiting the society, then it's not really useful. So the science action and also science policy, how do you influence policy as a result of your research product? That should come out very clearly in your proposal. There's a potential to strengthen capacity at individual, yourself as an individual who is participating in that project, partnerships and institutional levels. It just goes beyond master's and PhD training. Can we capacitate the communities that we work with? Can we capacitate the practitioners that we work with who are employed in various sectors of the economy? It could be government departments. How does that particular project capacitate those people? A project that's built on principles of research, partnership, equity, social cohesion, and also is gender sensitive. Those are some of the aspects that the funders will look at, whether that project will touch on that. So even when you're populating your team, you have to be sensitive to gender, you have to be sensitive to social cohesion and equity. That is very critical. And they really give points on that aspect in terms of the team composition. Okay, that's briefly on the grant proposals and also on grantsmanship. Now, I've been asked to touch a little bit on the publication and peer review process. I thought this was going to be a session on its own because there's a lot that I could say, but I'll just briefly touch on it so that at least we have a glimpse of the publication process. There's that phrase, it appears everywhere, publish or perish. If you're an academic institution, then you have to publish or perish. That's what they say. That will help you to enhance your academic journey. If you publish, your research will be known and you also be measured in terms of your success within the academic institution through publications. But here's the problem. When you submit your papers, on average, about 90% of journal papers that are submitted to journals are rejected. Initially, they are rejected. I'm an editor of InspiringGreatness Journal of Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing. I just took a snapshot that I'm showing you here of some of the papers that have been submitted and they've just rejected. That's the common trend in academia. When you are publishing, submitting your paper, they get rejected. But here's the good news. The good news is when your paper is rejected, you work on the comments that you receive from the reviewers and the editors, and you can submit it elsewhere. There's no problem of you submitting that paper elsewhere to another journal. You would see that it would have improved based on the comments that you get from the peer review process. And in most cases, if it's rejected once or twice, number 3, most cases, it will be accepted somewhere. So my point here is, although the statistic is not very good, you need to be encouraged, you need to endure, you need to persist and persevere in terms of research, and you get your papers published. Eventually, they will get published. Some do publish in order to get funding, some in order to get a PhD degree, some to get promoted at work. There are so many reasons why people try to publish their research. But the question is, do the editors and reviewers look at this when they are looking at your submission? They don't look at this. They look at the scientific relevance and the content in respect to whatever I have talked about, which is very, very similar to your paper when you've submitted. Is it contributing to new knowledge? Is it novel enough? Is it relevant enough to the situation? Those are some of the things that they look at. And then your paper will be accepted if it's well written and it conveys the message that the paper tries to convey and understood by a common scientific person. Now, where do we publish? We've got the D8 approved journals. Those are the ones that we need to focus on in terms of publication. I've got this link here. I'm not sure if it's still the same. I haven't clicked on it to check if that's where the list of journals are housed, but it's within the research website of the university. These are the D8 approved journals, and most of them, they speak to various known databases. You have to check the journal scientific indices, the Science Citation Index, Engineering Index, Web of Science, Chinese Academic Science, Arts and Humanities Citation Indexes, Social Science Citation Indexes. These are the indices or your Scopus. These are the indices where credible publications are made. If you see anything that is outside of some of these well-known databases and indices, then there is something wrong. And you have to be very careful when you submit your papers. So the first point of call, I would say, will be the D8 approved journals, which are updated every year on the website, university website, just to check if the journal that you want to submit your paper actually is listed on that particular spreadsheet. If not, then also check the website of that particular journal and check the publishing house of that particular journal. If it's not indexed, then there's a question mark. That is very, very important. So there are top journals like Nature, Your Science, with impact factors of around 70, 80. Very, very top journals. As an emerging researcher, it's not an area that you can start on to say you're going to publish in Nature. When you see journal papers that are published in Nature, you see that there are close to 30 or 40 authors for one paper. They are from those broad, projects or programs that have been going for quite some time, and they've done research that is broad enough to be published in Nature, and it's got so many contributors in that particular paper. And for you to start with that as an emerging researcher is quite tricky. Just start slowly, look for journals where you can publish. You can start with the local journals, go to the international journals in your field, and then try to submit your papers there. In my field, we've got very top remote sensing journals like Remote Sensing of Environment. That's where we do publish our work. So you do not have to aim for Nature at the start. Avoid predatory journals. I've talked about the various databases, indexed journals that you focus on. If you see that that particular journal is not indexed, then there's a question mark. And for you to see that this is a predatory journal, there are very clear-cut indicators. Number one is there's no evidence of review, or the review process is very clumsy. You submit your paper today, and then within 1 week, you get a response that the paper has been accepted. That's a question mark. The quick publication timeline, within a very short period of time, they've already published your paper. That's a red indicator. The websites are sometimes dubious, with a lot of mistakes on the websites, and the editorial members are not known. You look at the editorial members, you just see names, but you can't attach those names to any scientific work that they've done, which is credible. And they ask for immediate payments, very exorbitant payments in most cases. And the publishers are unknown. I've talked about the publishers, the databases that you use. If they are known, then there's a problem. And just check that they are predatory journals. There are journals that have been in the system which were not predatory before, but they've changed and became predatory. So you also have to check that. Because of some reasons that they've actually been removed from the mainstream science. So you have to check that. You don't have to just believe that these papers, because they were not predatory before, you can continue publishing. You have to check those papers. Submitting an article, very, very important. When you're submitting your articles to the journal, you have to adapt to the layout, citation, nomenclature, figures, tables, etc. And most of these journals, they do have instructions, very clear-cut instructions, guide to authors that you have to follow when you're submitting your journal. If you submit a journal paper and it doesn't have followed these guidelines, they get tests rejected by the editor, and that's a waste. So it's better for you to take time to make sure that you prepare your paper for the submission and make sure that it conforms to the requirements of that particular journal. When you've submitted your paper, there's a process that goes on, which is what the organizers wanted me to talk about. That's the review process, where the paper goes to the editor-in-chief of a journal. And if it's a big international journal, then the editor-in-chief will have associate editors spread across the whole world. And then he looks at the topic of the paper and he assigns to the specific editors who are experts in that particular field. And after that, the associate editor looks at the paper and see if it's relevant within the scope of the journal, and he looks at whether that paper is scientific enough to go for review. And most of the papers, they get rejected at this stage by the associate editor before they even go for peer review. And they look at the broad requirements of the journal, including the layout of the paper, including all the, whether you have done the graphs well, whether you have not plagiarized, whether you have copied some graphs or some figures from elsewhere. They look at these things and then they can reject your paper based on that, including the scientific content after they read the abstract and the overview of the paper. If it's successful at that particular stage, then the editor will send it to reviewers. There's a database now available for reviewers. We've got their credentials in that particular database, and then with keywords, the associate editor just selects, reviewers who are in that particular field, and they send it for review. And usually they take about 2 reviews to make a decision. If there is a clash and the editor is not very clear or not very sure on the 2 reviews, then they can send to another reviewer for arbitration. Then after that, when the reviewer receives those review comments, the editor received the review comments, then he will send back to the author with a decision on whether it's a minor revision, major revision, or reject or accept. Based on that, he makes a decision on that. And then your job as an author now is to look at those comments in detail and address them one by one. And then what is important is that rebuttal letter that you send back to the associate editor, because that rebuttal will specify how you address each and every comment from the reviewer. And the associate editor will look at that and check whether he's satisfied enough by those revisions or he needs to send them back for review. In most cases, if it's a first time revision, the associate editor sends it back to the reviewers. And it's usually the same reviewers who would have done the first review. But then he sends all the review comments now from other reviewers, so that that reviewer will see also how the other reviewers have addressed the comments and how they've also seen the paper. Then the author will have to look at those comments again and then submit. If there are any comments from the reviewers, then submit back to the associate editor. If the reviewers are satisfied, then the associate editor can just do the various editing of the paper and then accept the paper. But the paper can also be rejected at the second revision. It's also very possible that you would not have addressed the comments in detail and you would not have satisfied the reviewers in detail, and then the reviewers will say, no, these authors, they have not addressed the comments in detail, therefore we rejected the paper. And when the associate editor looks at those comments from the reviewers, you can make a decision on whether to accept or reject the paper. But you will be working closely with the editor-in-chief. So you will report to the editor-in-chief on the decisions that you would have made. And if the editor-in-chief has got a problem with that, then there's a discussion between the two of them until they come up to a final decision. That's when you get your paper accepted. So it's actually a process. That's why those papers or journals that accept papers within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that's why they are flagged for being predatory, because this review process is quite a long process. Of course, there are journals that are very quick in dispatching the papers to reviewers and also putting pressure on the reviewers to give back their comments. That's efficiency, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there are also some that take a bit long. So there's patience that is required in the review process when you submit your paper. Some can take it up to a year. Some can take 3-4 months for your paper to be accepted.
15
Let me
minutes.
finish off with this slide on ethical consideration, which is very critical. It's publish and perish if you plagiarize. I think we all know what constitutes plagiarism. There's a whole session that we can talk about with regards to plagiarism. It's just a scientific crime within the research institution. If you publish in predatory journals, or if you falsify the results in their court, or duplicate publications, you publish one paper here and then it's the same paper you go and submit it elsewhere. Duplicate submission and inappropriate acknowledgement of prior research and researchers. You don't acknowledge people that you work with in your research, including data collection, including the communities that you worked with. You don't acknowledge them. You need to acknowledge all the co-authors that you worked with in the paper. Or if you publish other persons' work following a request to review, you are given a paper to review, you read that paper, probably you reject it, but then you copy it and then you publish it elsewhere. Then that's academic fraud. Those are some of the ethical considerations that you have to take note of when you are within the publication process. Okay, I'll end here and wait for any questions or comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mutanga. Your presentation has provided us with important guidance on how researchers can better position themselves for successful grant applications, understanding the expectations of funding bodies, and navigate the peer review process effectively. The practical insights that you've shared with us will certainly assist researchers in strengthening their
reward or anything, in terms of payment. So it's a voluntary kind of provision, this kind of work. And so I conduct that quite often at our sister universities, where I'd go into the university space and assist with academic staff development or postgraduate academic development, etc., just to be able to engage from a research perspective and share knowledge, but without any, monetary gain, etc. So that community engagement is also very important. Now, the fourth strand of that identity construction is being a university teacher. And that is where postgraduate supervision is located. So what does it mean to be a university teacher? So on the one hand, we are given responsibilities of teaching in the different programs, the modules, coordinating those programs, designing, developing, and transforming the curriculum for those particular modules. But on the other hand, we are also given the responsibility of postgraduate supervision. So as part of our teaching workload, we are allocated postgraduate students. So that is where the role of the postgraduate supervisor fits in. So we've got to be able to construct our identity as an academic as part and parcel of being a postgraduate supervisor. So I just want to stop sharing here now and to be able to share with you my teaching workload, so that I want you to see how, as an academic, I am able to justify my salary at the end of the month, and to also show to my colleagues what I'm doing in terms of teaching and postgraduate supervision. So I just want to find my teaching workload. So this document, can you all see the screen, colleagues? So as emerging scholars, emerging academics, it is good to be able to complete this document at the beginning of the year, so that it gives a guide of exactly what is it you are doing as an academic at the university. So you'll see that on this particular section of the form, there's an indication of all the modules that I'm teaching this year. So I'm teaching 3 modules. So it's researching in higher education, assessing learning in higher education, and research proposal development. And those are the module codes. And these are the number of lectures, number of contact sessions, etc., that make up the module teaching part of my work for the year. So it comes to about 477.5 hours. Then we've got the teaching practice, because I work at the School of Education, and by virtue of me being a head of discipline and being part of SMC, I'm excused from doing teaching practice, which generally accounts for 90 hours. Now, this is the part of the form that I want you to pay particular attention to, because this is where you indicate your research supervision load for the year. So you can see that I've got 6 postgraduate students allocated at master's level. So we'll come to the division of full research masters and coursework masters, and I will explain the difference just now. But just to say that for the year, if you are supervising a master's student who is doing a full research master's, then you can claim 68 hours of contact time. So this is 68 hours of supervision time, colleagues. So for every student, you should be managing your time so that you are allocating those 68 hours in terms of developing and designing a curriculum for each of those students. And I can take some questions later about what do I mean by saying we are designing the curriculum. Yes, we are designing the research proposal, and we are designing the research process and the research dissertation at master's level and the thesis at PhD level. And what does that mean in terms of your responsibility as a supervisor to design that particular curriculum together with your student? So those are the master's students. Then moving down to the PhD students, you see as a main supervisor, you are allocated 90 hours per year. So you can see the list goes on. And my current supervision load is 12 students. So there's 6 masters and 6 PhD students. So that accounts for 948 hours. Now, colleagues, the requirement is 810 hours. So you can see, by virtue of the number of students I have and the number of modules I am teaching, my workload just for teaching and postgraduate supervision for the year is 1,425.5 hours. That is not taking into consideration all the research work that I'm doing. I'm editor of a journal called Transformation in Higher Education, all the publications, etc. It's not taking that. This is only teaching. It's not also taking into consideration that I'm head of a discipline, I'm a writing mentor, I belong to those different committees, I'm also a program coordinator, I coordinate the postgraduate diploma in higher education, coursework masters in higher education, full research in higher education, PhD in higher education. So I just wanted, I don't want to spend too much of time on that, but just to say, colleagues, that is a rough idea of how I spend my time as a member of staff in the School of Education for 1 year. That 1,435 hours is just teaching modules and postgraduate supervision. So as academics at the university, we are also guided by the Senate norm. So there are Senate norms with regards to postgraduate supervision allocation. So the Senate norm currently is that for every academic should be supervising at least 6 postgraduate students. Now, those 6 postgraduate students can be divided between the honors, the IRP supervision, the master's, and the PhD supervision load. So I just want to give you an idea that our performance management system will recognize that Senate norm in order to measure you and your postgraduate supervision load. So just bear that in mind as well. So there are Senate norms, but there are also school norms. So depending on your school and your discipline and the number of postgraduate students that enroll in your particular discipline and your school, the pressure does increase. So I can say in the School of Education, we generally say that our postgraduate supervision load should be around 12. So each academic in the School of Education should have at least 12 students that they are supervising, postgraduate students that they are supervising over and above the module teaching and assessing that I showed you, that becomes part of our teaching workload. So just bear that in mind as well. So I want to go back to my presentation now. And to be able to say that within this context, colleagues, of our historical background, which, all of us know the impact of apartheid and the unequal higher education terrain that resulted because of the apartheid policies. I think that even 30 years later, we are still seeing some of these inequities and inequalities. So despite this kind of historical background, we as academics are supposed to be supervising, teaching, researching, etc., and be functioning at top level in order for us to be able to progress and get promoted along the academic structure, which is lecturer to senior lecturer to associate professor to full professor. So having said that, we also must be aware of our academic promotions policy and what is required for that kind of progression from lecturer to senior lecturer to associate professor, and your postgraduate supervision capacity as an important bearing on how quickly one can progress from lecturer to senior lecturer, etc., because it's part of the promotion policy where the number of students that you've supervised to completion also is considered. Okay, and then in terms of the massification, I've already alluded to the fact that there is a Senate norm for postgraduate supervision. There's a discipline or school norm in terms of massification. So, these are some of the challenges that we also have to consider as we are engaging on the postgraduate supervision journey. Another pressure that we find ourselves facing is the pressure of enrollment targets. So in my school, for example, we have a very high demand for postgraduate programs in especially in education, leadership, management, and policy, where our school principals and heads of departments are wanting to gain higher qualifications so that they can progress and apply for principalship, etc. So our enrollment targets are very high. So this will differ from discipline to discipline, school to school. But then also the university puts this pressure around enrollment targets because it also has got a funding implication. So the number of students that we enroll is or determines the funding that we receive as a university. And together with the enrollment target is the throughput rate. So the pressure is on us as academics and as postgraduate supervisors to ensure that the students that we register complete in minimum time and that they graduate, because as they graduate, the university receives funding as well. So just to remind ourselves that the minimum time for completion for a coursework master's is 2 years. So the coursework master's is generally made up of modules, around 6 modules, as well as the dissertation, which is a mini dissertation. The master's by full research, the completion time is 1 year. So in that 1 year, a student and supervisor are expected to design or write up a fully fledged research proposal, defend that proposal, get ethical clearance, and be able to complete the research, produce the data, analyze it, and write it up as a dissertation and submit it for examination, all within a space of 1 year. And the incentive for this is that there's remission of fees to complete the master's by research in 1 year. So most students opt for that option because of the funding, the fee remission. And to say the same would apply for the PhD. So the PhD is also, the minimum completion time is 3 years, and the motivation to complete in the 3 years is the fee remission. So you get a remission of fees for 3 years. Although there's 1 year additional that can be granted. So it's 3 plus 1. So the minimum completion time then would be 4 years. But let me just reiterate that this is full-time. So PhD full-time is 3 years plus 1 year. Now, most of us know that our students are also working, but they register as full-time students because they require the remission of fees. So I'm saying that, and I'm just inserting that because that then complicates the time that is allocated for the study. So the notional hours that are actually meant to be spent in the research doing your PhD or doing your master's is compromised if students are working and then wanting to complete their master's and PhD, at that same pace for the full-time programs. So just something to be aware of. So another consideration is the politics of supervision. So I've already shared with you the teaching workload framework and what what justifies our work as academics. So, this kind of supervision workload can be very overloading, overbearing because of the enrollment targets, because of the pressure of throughput rates, etc. So it's something to be very careful of. But I want to appeal to colleagues that you are able to share this teaching workload so that there's equitable allocation and distribution of postgraduate students as well. And where we don't find ourselves in a discipline or where one member of staff is supervising 18 students, and then there's another member of staff who have 3 students. So, as heads of disciplines or heads of departments, I think it is our role and responsibility to ensure that there's an equitable distribution of teaching workload in terms of module teaching, but also in terms of postgraduate supervision. So co-supervision, I just want to speak briefly about co-supervision and what is the purpose then of allocating a co-supervisor. So co-supervision, there are many reasons why we appoint co-supervisors, and one of it is to mentor.
20 minutes.
So I've completed 20 minutes, so I've got 10 minutes left. Is that what you say?
You have 20 minutes left.
Oh, okay, thank you. So co-supervision is, and I think many of you in the audience will be emerging academics. You have probably just graduated with your PhD. So it's unfair to allocate a new student, a new PhD student, without appointing a main supervisor. So what we kind of have a rule in place is that for the newly graduated PhD students, we tend to appoint a main supervisor and the PhD graduate, the emerging academic, as the co-supervisor, so that they are mentored into the process of supervision. Because it is, sometimes it's taken for granted that by virtue of completing your PhD, you are now proficient in supervising another PhD candidate. And we know that's not necessarily true. So co-supervision is, that is one of the purposes of co-supervision. But another reason why a co-supervisor can be allocated is for disciplinary knowledge. So at the moment, I've just appointed a co-supervisor for a master's student who works at the medical school. So he works in the skills laboratory at the medical school, and his research is looking at the MBCHB curriculum and how do medical students engage in video-based assessments during their objectively structured clinical exam. I don't want to go into the detail of it, but you can see that is a very focused research in medical education. So I am the supervisor from a higher education perspective, but I thought I would appoint a co-supervisor who is a medical doctor, who is a clinician at the medical school that is working at the skills laboratory for the purposes of giving feedback from a disciplinary perspective. So that situation of allocating a co-supervisor then will mean that kind of disciplinary expertise or knowledge coming from the supervisor. And then just to talk briefly about cross-faculty, cross-university supervision. So by allocating that particular co-supervisor, what we were able to do is, the student is registered in the School of Education. So I can, so the student is registered under my supervision as the main supervisor. I've completed the paperwork for this person to be allocated as a co-supervisor. However, if we go into the electronic teaching workload document, there is no provision for that particular person who works in the College of Health Sciences in the School of Clinical Medicine to be found as the co-supervisor, because the system as it is designed won't be able to recognize a co-supervisor from another college or another school. So just bear that in mind. And that has workload implications. So that person who is the co-supervisor in the School of Clinical Medicine, on her teaching workload framework, she will not be able to indicate that this student is under her supervision. However, we've got the documents to support that. So, the systems at the moment don't speak to each other. So it is a concern if you are supervising a student who is in another college or is in another school, it may compromise your connection to that student in terms of the electronic teaching workload framework. And then the same can be said for cross-university supervision. So if I want to supervise a student at UniZulu, for example, UKZN will not be able to recognize that workload based on the current electronic format of the teaching workload. However, I can submit that to my line manager to say, I am supervising in another university or I'm supervising internationally. But of course, my main focus should be supervising our own students as well. So these are some of the issues that we face in terms of politics of supervision. Now, what is our role as a postgraduate supervisor in terms of the academic guidance? So, but before I go to the academic guidance, I just want to show you a document. I just want to show you a document that when you are allocated a student, a postgraduate student, you have to ensure that you complete this form, which is a MOU. It's a memorandum of understanding. Can you see the screen, colleagues?
Yes, we can.
You can see. So this is the College of Humanities supervisor-supervisee contract, or MOU. So this is a blank form. Now I'm showing you this form because for every single student that you supervise, you should be negotiating with your student in terms of, you know, what is it that you are going to do, your meetings, your expectations, so your terms of engagement. So, you know, it's like a proposal that you are going to be formulating with your students. So it's your terms of engagement, it's your contract. So if you don't put it down here in writing, that you will be expecting your student to submit in writing their written work so that you can read and give feedback, and you will submit that feedback within 10 days or 2 weeks. So it's a kind of opportunity to really seal and sign your relationship with the student. And this form is a legal document that you can hold your student to account, but it's also what your student can hold you to account. So right at the beginning of your relationship with the student, you have to, what I do is I call my student in face-to-face, and we go through that contract and we negotiate our terms of engagement. So there we will discuss, you know, the frequency of our meetings, whether it's going to be face-to-face, whether it's going to be Teams meetings. How am I going to accept the feedback? I'm not going to accept just an email to say, Prof, I've read 10 articles and please, can you guide me? So, you know, that email means nothing to me. I have to be able to receive a synthesis of that 10 articles in terms of an analysis, synthesis, and engagement with the literature, and, you know, put that in writing so that I can read it and give my feedback timelessly. And then also it eliminates this issue of, you know, some supervisors getting off easily, where students send their work and then, you know, months can go by and they don't give students feedback. And that's a reality. That's, you know, what we hear from our students in terms of their progress reports, etc. But it's also the other way around. As a supervisor, you'll hear from the student in the first week they registered, you signed the appointment of supervisor form, and you went through this contract, and then the student disappears. 6 months later, they'll send you a complete research proposal where you've not been able to conceptualize the study with the student, go through the research, the real problem, articulate it as a research problem, identify the appropriate theoretical frameworks, the research methodology and design, etc. So you can see there's no, in that case, you are not directly involved with the student every step of the way, but the student at 6 months later is just sending you the proposal. Now, who would have written that proposal? Is it AI generated? Is the student paid somebody to write it? So you haven't been involved in that. So what I'm saying is, to eliminate all that, you have to, right at the beginning, you know, as you are signing that MOU with the student, you're going to be able to negotiate your terms of engagement throughout the postgraduate supervision relationship. And, you know, that document is a legal document. So if either party, you know, does not meet those terms of engagement, then something has to be done about that. So going back to just write down your questions, colleagues. I know that I'm moving a bit, but I will take your questions at the end, and I'm aware of time as well. So in terms of the academic guidance, and I've already alluded to it. So as a supervisor, it is important to sit with your student to be able to conceptualize the research problem. And we know that the research problem, whether it's located in the sciences or in commerce or in law or in the humanities, the research problem is derived from a real problem. So what is the real problem? And that's what you need to discuss with your students right up front, and then to be able to assist them to articulate it as a research problem, the statement of the research problem based on literature around that phenomenon that they want to put under the microscope, to be able to then craft research questions, critical research questions or objectives that will pave the way and enable the research process to unfold, to be able to identify the relevant, appropriate literature, the scholarship that has been done over the past 5 to 8 years on the phenomenon, but also to review literature based on the theories, theoretical frameworks, seminal works, and to be able to, assist the student. No, I'm not saying as a supervisor you've got to, send all the articles, but you've got to sit together with the student to help locate that particular study within a research paradigm or within a community of practice, within a scholarship, a body of scholarship, so that the student knows exactly the body of knowledge that this research study that they are engaging in is going to contribute to at the end of the day. Having said that, we also as supervisors need to be aware of the NQF levels that our students are registering at. So we know that the PhD is at the NQF level 10. What does that mean? What are the level descriptors saying about graduate competencies at PhD level? There are 10 level descriptors. We must be familiar with that. The scope of knowledge, the literature in the field. So it's about the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that we want our graduates to leave with. So at master's level, it's NQF level 9. At PhD level, it's NQF level 10. What does that mean? And then how do we design the curriculum to be able to achieve those level descriptors at those different levels? And then and that should be the guiding point, and then work backwards. When we're working backwards, then how are we designing the research proposal with the view of doing the research and writing up the dissertation and the thesis, and ensuring that by the end of this process, indeed, we have assisted our student to be able to achieve the graduate competencies at a master's level and at a PhD level. So coming back to this academic guidance, colleagues, what is also important is to be able to assist our students to transform the curriculum. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is to be able to identify real life problems, our problems, South African problems across the different disciplines, but to also be able to identify theories and theoretical frameworks that we have come up with, we have designed. So, for example, I have a PhD student who is looking at Ubizo. So Ubizo is ancestral calling. And how do our students negotiate their identities when they receive this calling, and their identities as full-time students? And hers is a case study of selected Zulu-speaking students at UKZN. Now, we cannot be drawing on theories of the West and of the North to be able to understand this whole phenomenon of Ubizo and how do students negotiate between their academic identity as a student and their identity during Ubizo. So we've got to be able to call on relevant theories and theoretical frameworks. And in this case, it's about Ubuntu, it's about, post-colonial or decolonial theories to be able to assist the student to look at this research problem, to be able to design research data generation instruments, to be able to produce the data, analyze the data from a kind of a theoretical framework that's an African or, a South African that's located within our kind of knowledges or knowledge systems. So therein is an opportunity for us as postgraduate supervisors to transform the postgraduate curriculum and to assist students to be able to identify research methodologies, designs, locating the study within a research paradigm, to be able to identify the ethical issues, the ethical considerations of the study, the credibility of the study, what makes the study valid, reliable, trustworthiness, transparency, member checking. So those are some of the things that we need to assist our students with as they are developing and designing the research proposal. But over and above the academic guidance, we are mentors. So it's beyond academics. It's beyond just, career development. It's about career development, showing our students then from the masters, how can they progress to PhD? How can they progress to postdoc? How can they become members of communities of practice in terms of conferences and, making available some funding for students to attend conferences and to be part and parcel of the communities of practice that we as supervisors find ourselves in. So I spoke about the ethical oversight. I spoke already about the resource facilitation, and I also spoke about the research proposal development. But also in preparation for the proposal development, our role as a supervisor is to identify panelists, or, we have an oral review that students need to complete before their proposal is accepted. And so it is a role of the supervisor to be able to prepare the student, to constitute the panel, and to assist the student with the ethical clearance application. So I'm moving quickly now, and I will make my slides available for those of you who need the step-by-step guidance. But just to say that during the research process as well, it is our role as a postgraduate supervisor to be able to assist our students to gain access to their participants, to sometimes gatekeepers may, although they get gatekeeper permission to allow students to go into a particular community or sector, or school or Department of Health, or wherever it is, to go and interview students, but that time can be problematic, gaining actual access, especially if students are researching up. That means where the participants are at a higher level, whether it's work level, position, etc., interviewing deputy vice chancellors or vice chancellors, or, researching down where you're going to be researching people that are maybe afraid of you because you are the lecturer or the coordinator or the program coordinator or the academic leader. So they may not be able to, there may be issues with power. So as a supervisor, you can assist the student to be able to overcome challenges of power and power imbalance. But all the time during the research, colleagues, as supervisors, we have to encourage our students to be thinking critically. Now that we are in this age of AI, and I know that is a whole different seminar on how do we engage AI critically and ethically in the postgraduate supervision process. That is another seminar. But I just want to alert colleagues here that UKZN has got a guidelines document, and which gives us a kind of terms of engagement with AI. So it's not about policing AI. We know that our students are engaging AI, but as supervisors, how are we ensuring that our students are engaging AI critically, ethically, and that the chapters are not just generated by AI, the literature reviews are not just generated by AI, the references have not just been hallucinated. So we've got to be working with our students face to face. We've got to be working with their submissions very closely to be able to track and trace the development of the study from conceptualization, so that we can be alerted if the AI is being used unethically, if there's plagiarism, etc. Okay, during the write-up, the structure of the thesis, structure of the dissertation. So we as supervisors have to be aware of, exactly how many chapters we want the dissertation to contain. What is the purpose of the chapter 1, background and context? Chapter 2, the literature review. Chapter 3, theoretical framework. Chapter 4, research methodology and design. Chapter 5, the data analysis presentation of findings, maybe for research question 1. The next chapter, presenting the findings for research question 2, and so on. So, we have to have this kind of overall oversight and to be able to guide the student to ensure that their work is organized, it's coherent, and it is actually meeting the rigor and requirements at the different NQF levels. So I just want to spend a little time on identifying relevant examiners, because that is also part of our responsibility as a postgraduate supervisor. So identifying examiners is not identifying our friends who are we going to be examining one for them and passing it, and they're going to be examining one for you and passing it. So the way you identify relevant examiners is dependent on the phenomenon that is under study and the discipline that it is registered within. So you have to, for PhD, you are going to allocate an internal examiner, a national examiner, an international examiner, as well as an alternate international examiner. So in your nomination of examiners forms, you should have at least 4 examiners, because just in case one gets sick, then the alternate examiner can come into action. So these nomination of examiners forms take a long time, because they've got to go through the different structures. So as a supervisor, you've got to identify these colleagues, you've got to ensure that they are available. And again, it's based on their disciplinary expertise or their theoretical expertise or their methodological expertise or their familiarity with the phenomenon under study. So that's how you are selecting your examiners and justifying that selection by writing up a motivation in a form that's called nomination of examiners. So you get the CVs, and you write a short motivation for each of these examiners, and you submit that to the Research and Higher Degrees Committee. So it gets ratified there. So as a supervisor, we are merely nominating the examiners. The Research and Higher Degrees Committee has a right of either accepting or rejecting the examiner, and they will give you a reason why. And here again, there's little untold rules about nomination of examiners. So for example, if I am submitting my PhD students' work for examination, I cannot now allocate as an examiner one of my PhD graduates. So you see that now that rule, I'm not sure where you'll find it in a policy, but it's a rule, because that would actually compromise the process, because there may be a conflict of interest. So by virtue of my graduate, I'm being the supervisor, and now I'm asking that particular individual to examine another of my students' work, it's compromising the integrity of the assessment, because that person was my student. So there may be some issues of power at play, or whatever the case may be. So neither can I nominate an examiner who's related or has been publishing. So there's a number of rules that we need to be aware of and familiar with as we are nominating examiners. And the Research and Higher Degrees Committee has the task of then identifying, whether the examiner is indeed relevant for that particular, to serve as an examiner. And these forms have to be submitted way in advance. So for a PhD, it's generally 6 months before the submission date. So as supervisors, we target generally the graduation. So if we're targeting next year, April's graduation, then we should be submitting the PhD thesis for examination or master's dissertation for examination by at least the end of November. So we've got to be able to submit the intention to submit form, as well as the nomination of examiners form. So the ethics around supervision is very, very important in terms of maintaining this professional and respectful relationship at all times, ensuring transparency, protecting our students' intellectual property, etc. So what I've done is I have prepared some case studies, but I'm not going to go through the case studies. I can have it available to you in the form of the presentation so that you can read it. So because I'd like to spend more time with questions and answers rather than going through the entire presentation. But I just want to touch on a few points in terms of challenges that we are facing currently based on the numbers. So because of the large numbers of postgraduate students that are registering, there is a large student to supervisor ratio. So what we have done in the School of Education is that we've come up with a kind of a cohort supervision model. So these are collaborative supervision strategies. So I am part of a PhD cohort supervision model that brings together about 10 supervisors. So it's a supervisor-led cohort supervision model. So it's not necessarily discipline specific. So in my cohort supervision model, we've got about 10 supervisors from the School of Education, some from higher education studies, some from teacher development studies, some from curriculum studies, etc. So the rule is that you come on board as a facilitator in this cohort, and it's only then that you invite your students to come on board. So, for example, the students that form the cohort, their supervisors have to be present. They have to be part of this cohort. And the way we organize the cohort is we have 3 groups. So the 3 groups are according to the phases of the research. So the phase 1 is the research proposal development phase. So the first year of the PhD is generally allocated to the research development. And so we've got a group of facilitators that look after all the students that are in that cohort in their first year, with the view of assisting them to be able to complete their research proposal by at least September, October of the year, and so that they can defend that proposal and go through to the next phase. So the second year group is about the field work. So preparing the students for the actual field work, the data generation instruments, the research methods, interviews, focus group discussions, observations. So how do they go about organizing themselves during the fieldwork stage? And then the third year of the cohort supervision model is around writing up theorization, data analysis, and putting together the entire thesis. So I was a student in this PhD cohort. I registered for my PhD at the School of Education in 2008. And by simply following the pacing of the PhD cohort seminars, which were 6 a year, every 6 weeks apart, I was able to complete my PhD in 3 years. So I started in 2008. By the end of 2008, completed the research proposal and defended it. Went into 2009, which was the second year, completed the field work and generated the data, produced the data. And in the third year, 2010, I attended all 6 of the seminars, with the last seminar being the seminar where I presented my entire thesis. And, that was in November, and December, first week of December, I handed in my thesis for examination. So that cohort supervision model really worked for me, and it's been assisting me with my postgraduate supervision of my students. So I'm pacing them through the cohort supervision model. Like I said, there are 6 meetings that happen on a Friday and Saturday. So it's 6 weeks apart. And this is completely voluntary, colleagues. So it's online. We used to have it face-to-face, but it's now online. And it starts off on a Friday afternoon around 3 o'clock. It goes to about 8 o'clock, and it starts again on a Saturday from about 8:30 to about 4. So every 6 weeks, we meet as this PhD cohort, and students get to present their work, and they get feedback. And this helps them shape their proposals, their fieldwork strategies, and then the eventual write-up. So for those of you who have got a large number of students that are appointed to you in your disciplines, etc., I will really encourage this kind of cohort supervision, because I can really testify to its productivity, pacing, etc. And then now that we are using technology, it makes things easier. Yeah, so just to go on to the presentation about, building trust, clear communication, regular meetings, encouraging independence. So, when you start off the supervision process, there's a lot of guidance and support that we're providing the students. Yes, time is
We've
up
gone
now.
over time, yes.
Okay, I'm wrapping up, right? I'll just give me
Thank
2
you.
minutes and I'll be done. So I just wanted to say that, as we are engaging with the research process, more and more the student should become the kind of person, the driver of the relationship. They should be introducing the new readings, the new theories, the new methodologies. So, it moves from a kind of a guidance to autonomy model. Yeah, so like I said, there are these different scenarios that are put together just to show the responsibility, the role and responsibility of the student, of the supervisor, and of the institution. So I'm not going to go through that, but I will make this available. I just want to get to the conclusion. So even in this slide, you can see the different roles of the supervisor. Oops, there's too many roles as a supervisor. So as I'm presenting this, maybe you can be writing down some questions or comments for discussion. I'm not sure how much of time we have left for that. So just to conclude by saying that, postgraduate supervision is more than just guiding research. It's about shaping the future of knowledge and transformation. So supervisors are not just mentors, they are key agents in breaking down the barriers of inequality and empowering students to challenge outdated academic norms. The responsibility is huge, but so is the opportunity. So by fostering critical thinkers and change makers, supervisors help shape a more inclusive and transformed higher education landscape. So the question is, are we ready to embrace this role and drive meaningful change? And our future in academia depends on it. So with that, I'd like to once again thank you for listening to my presentation, and thank you for the invitation to just share some of my experiences as a postgraduate supervisor as well.
Thank you so much, Prof. Reddy. Your presentation has highlighted the important role that supervisors play in guiding, mentoring, and developing the next generation of researchers. The insights that you've shared on this platform, supporting emerging scholars and enhancing postgraduate research practices is valuable. And as we continue to strengthen research capacity in our institution, we really appreciate the expertise and the experience that you have shared with us today. Only going to take one question because of time constraints. The other content on the chats are comments. So there is Lungisa Dludla. He asked, I would like to know about the criteria used to appoint newly qualified PhD students to UKZN as lecturers. I'm asking this because I find students who do not have an accent or have no model C background school education, like myself, not getting recognized or their knowledge not prioritized as compared to a PhD student who has an accent in English. Maybe we can just reply to this one question and then move on with the program.
Yeah, that's a difficult one because it's asking about appointment criteria for academic positions. So I can safely say that in my discipline, so I serve as a head of discipline, so I'm currently working with a number of adverts. We've had a number of staff members resigning, young academics resigning from the School of Education and taking up positions elsewhere. for whatever the reason may be that the salaries are better elsewhere. I don't want to put my foot in it, but I am left with a number of vacant posts, and we have been doing interviews. So basically, the minimum requirement for at lecturer level is a PhD in the discipline, you know. So and that recruitment and selection process is a very rigorous process. So, and I've just come through a number of interviews for a number of posts. So and some have taken up to 3 months to even, the interviews were done in March and we are now in June. I did 3 interviews in March, interviews and selected 3 candidates for a post as a lecturer in ELMP. And we are still unable to secure the 3rd person because of the MIE. There's a number of checks and balances that the institution has to put the candidate through in terms of tracking their qualifications, the authenticity of the certification, fingerprints. So, you know, there's a number of things that HR has to do as well. But when it comes to the minimum requirements from an academic perspective, I can safely say that we look at it from a meritorious perspective in terms of the PhD and the experience, and you know, what is it that we are expecting at a lecturer level in terms of you know, maybe some publications and some conference presentations, etc. So I'm just saying that, you know, we don't that's the lenses or the criteria that we are using to appoint staff. But I'm not sure, you know, in other schools or other areas or disciplines, what are the criteria they are using to employ our PhD graduates. But we are applying very stringent criteria from a meritorious base. But of course, equity as a part to play as well. Thanks, Nantubeko. Is there anything else?
Thank you, Prof. I think that was all in terms of questions.
I just want to say, sorry, Nantubeko, that I do offer a 3-day workshop on supervising research in higher education, and that is part of the University Education Induction Program. So for those who are interested in joining that program, they've got to apply through the GSBNL, Graduate School for Business and Leadership, and they are welcome to attend the 3. So postgraduate supervision is a big area. You can see I just touched a little bit of it, and I can spend 3 days talking about it. So that if they want to learn more about postgraduate supervision, they are welcome to join me in the UEIP, Supervising Research in Higher Education module. Thank you so much. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Prof, for this insightful information. Colleagues, our next speaker is Miss Johanna Kuhn from Springer Nature. She will be sharing information on open science innovation and African research visibility. Having joined Biomed Central, which is part of Springer Nature, in 2008, Johanna's core role is to support the local Springer Nature licensing team in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, parts of Asia and Africa with her open access expertise as the importance of transformative agreements is increasing. In addition, she is responsible for creating and maintaining institutional partnerships and increase awareness of open research at Springer Nature. Please, Ms. Johanna, you can take the stage. Thank you.
Good day, thanks, and welcome to my talk about open science and open access. I've already been introduced. Just checking, can you see my screen? And can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect. So I've been already introduced. I am a senior open access partnerships manager at Springer Nature, and I worked with, for instance, the Sunlink consortium and with our licensing manager on establishing and the Sandvik Springer Nature Transformative Agreement. So I come from the open access side at Springer Nature, and I'm giving an introduction on sustainable transition to open access. And that's what I will start with, short intro on open science and why open access, why it matters, and some other initiatives that we are leading at Springer Nature to maximize the open access output and speed up the open access transition. One part of this is the role of transformative agreements, such as the Sandvik agreement. So we'll talk about that. And then I have included a section about open access metrics and research metrics in an African context as the last part of my presentation today. So what is open science? Why it matters? Surely you've all heard about open science. What is open access? Just a short overview of where we come from our perspective at Springer Nature. Open science is at the heart of open research, also at the heart of what we do, and it solves some of the world's greatest challenges. So by opening up all aspects of research to all, such as data that is underlying the article, protocols, code, and research metrics. So these all aspects should be open for all to read and to download as well. So these are underlying the research article. The research article or access to the article is only one part of the greater picture with open science. So with open science, it has a number of very important benefits, including use and reuse and speeding up scientific advances. For instance, it creates a faster and more effective research system, sustainably and at scale, as we can build on existing research immediately and without any barriers, as there is no subscription fee. Researchers, authors do not have to see whether they have access or ask the library about it. These articles can be accessed free of charge and downloaded and reused under certain conditions according to their open access license. So these articles can then be reused, and this also means that we can, for instance, avoid duplication of research or repeat negative results or repeat experiments that have already turned out not to work as expected. So this makes the research more effective. With open science, we can also build up on an equitable research landscape. Not only are authors or readers able to access their articles freely, regardless of their funding status, but they can also actively participate in publishing in open access or open access in hybrid journals through their institution, perhaps through a transformative agreement, regardless of the size of the institution or of their disciplinary orientation, if there's any. And also open access articles are downloaded and cited more often than non-open access articles. Again, disciplines that maybe perhaps haven't been participating in open science previously, such as humanities and social sciences, might benefit from this a lot. Also, open science protects and enhances research integrity, as research is more reproducible to all of the elements of the research, like data, protocols, being openly available. And this makes research also more transparent and more credible as a result, even credible to the general public. So opening up all of these aspects, we can deliver efficiencies for research, also foster collaboration between disciplines and many other benefits. There are also some very tangible benefits of open research and open science. We know about this at Springer Nature. The open science is the future, so we continue working towards a greater visibility and maximize the research output that is published under the open access model. So some of the benefits extend to the researchers, but also the institutions, their funders, and beyond, even beyond academia. So within the research system, we see that open access articles have on average higher downloads and higher citations than non-open access articles. As I said, they enable reproducibility and increase trust in research. By making global research open, we help to enable and improve collaborations and also interdisciplinary research, which is especially relevant to the Sustainable Development Goals. I've got a slide on that as well later on in my presentation. But also beyond academia, we see benefits, for example, when it comes to smoothing the path from research to real-world application, such as in healthcare, engineering, technology, or agriculture, especially relevant to support these real-world applications. And also, open science increases the impact of the research output, and media and social media dimensions of research, makes research accessible to companies and startups, which boosts economic growth, and making publicly funded research accessible to the public, as well as democratizing access to research outcome. And ultimately, open access makes it easier for researchers to access, understand, and build on the work of other researchers. So these are some of the benefits of open access and open science in a nutshell. In a little bit more detail here, we've proven that open access articles are used and reused more than non-open access articles. For all aspects and all participants in this process. For instance, for authors, most importantly, publishing open access increases visibility and usage of their work. We've done a white paper on that a few years ago. It's called Going for Gold. You can find it on our website. And it showed that open access articles receive on average 1.7 times more citations than non-open access articles, and an even higher increase on citations for open access books versus non-open access books. But we know the limitations to the impact factor and citations. So we also look at the altmetrics factor. Altmetric tracks and captures a range of online attention sources to publish research across social media, general news outlets, and also policy mentions. So this attention score also increased for open access versus non-open access articles as well as books. On the other hand, librarians and institutions see higher downloads for articles, open access articles and open access books. And overall for society and science, as research is open for all and is able to use to tackle societal challenges. For instance, 62% of journal articles relating to the Sustainable Development Goals are published under the open access model. And here we see this in a little bit more detail. So the 62% of articles also have higher citations for SDG articles in open access, so 1.41 citations on average per article versus 0.52 citations for non-open access articles in these areas. They're also cited faster, more rapidly than non-open access articles on average after 501 days for open access articles, and a significantly longer time span to first citation than non-open access articles. So open access to articles and open science to all the other aspects of research removes barriers to knowledge, increases visibility, and supports global engagement. So let's take a look at the role that we play at InspiringGreatness, about how we look at the transition to open access, meaning that as a publisher, we are committed to transforming into an open access organization, meaning that we have been working for years on increasing the proportion of open access content in our journals versus non-open access content. So we've reached our goal last year, where more than 50% now of our primary research is now published under the open access model. But we continue working on this to increase and maximize these numbers with 4 of these main means, which is focusing on gold open access, investing in our full open access portfolio, innovating to ensure equity in open access, and transitioning our hybrid portfolio via the transformative agreements. So we are committed to transitioning all primary research that we publish to gold open access so that this authoritative version is immediately available to all. So gold open access means immediate access to the research with some conditions such as our gold open access version of record has a full open access license and that regulates use and reuse of the article and some other aspects that we'll cover here. So in our opinion, gold open access offers the most sustainable route to open access, and therefore we support it. We've also seen gold open access growing faster than any other open access model, such as the bronze or green open access, which actually has declined for the past 12 years, and now gold open access is by far the most used version of open access, and other models of open access are not comparable to gold. Also, it means the most important aspect that matters the most to our authors is that the version of record is available immediately. So the version of record is therefore most relevant to authors. We've done an inquiry about this topic a couple of years ago, asking authors their priorities with regards to their article and their version that they are using. So the answer was very clear. The version of record has a priority over almost everything else because authors are aware that this version of the article can be trusted. It is maintained and curated by the publisher. It supports open science, and it is not dependent on subscriptions. So some other models of open access depend on the subscription version still, and not so for gold open access. Therefore, it is the most sustainable version, which our authors are also aware of. So we've seen, therefore, in 2024, a 31% increase in downloads for books and 30% for journals, also 10 times more gold open access articles delivered via the transformative agreements rather than outside of transformative agreements, which would be author choice and then funded from other sources. Secondly, we are also proud of our fully open access journal portfolio. So fully open access means that all articles published in those journals are already open access and there is no more subscription content. So on the other side, we have our hybrid journal portfolio, which falls under the transformative agreement, which still has subscription content, but our fully open access portfolio doesn't have any more subscription content. It basically has completed its transition to open access. The path is done, but they are still very important for us overall for our general transition to being an open access publisher. Therefore, we continue to invest in those. And just a brief overview, we have 770 fully open access journals, and here's some of the top 3 downloaded journals: Scientific Reports, Nature Communications, and BMC Public Health are all fully open access journals. And we also continue to launch more journals. A lot of articles are published every year in those journals, and on average 7.6 citations for articles published in our fully open access portfolios. Thirdly, Springer Nature is innovating to ensure equity in open access so that everyone can participate. More than 40% of the open access papers we publish are at a zero or very low cost for authors. As we know, as we are supposed to know, most open access journals or open access publications come at a cost, the so-called article processing charge, which can be difficult for authors to cover, but we have come up with these various ways to support authors with it. The most important one is now the transformative agreements or fully open access agreements that help institutions or entire countries to cover publication costs on behalf of their authors. if they belong to one of the participating institutions, so they don't have to pay for those article processing charges themselves. Also, we have a waivers and tiered pricing pilot in place for for authors that are not affiliated to one of the participating institutions, also in lower to lower middle income countries, where we apply a waiver or a proportion of the APC is discounted for authors based in those countries. We also experiment with new business models, such as, for example, our curious journals that use a different model that allows well-drafted relevant submissions to publish open access for free, opening open access publishing up to a wider audience, including non-academics. So making it also more equitable on that front. On the other hand, we also have a number of diamond open access journals. This means journals that are fully sponsored by outside sponsors, and therefore they do not have an article processing charge that authors have to pay. Also, for nature journals, they are higher priced and therefore also harder for authors to cover the article processing charges, especially for when you are coming from a lower or lower middle income country. So for those nature journals, we have a nature fund that allows primary research by authors from one of those countries in Nature or other nature research journals publish open access at no cost using this dedicated fund. And Springer Nature is also transforming the hybrid journal portfolio, allowing us via transformative agreements to publish more open access content in those hybrid journals than ever. And so our transformative agreements have been very instrumental in increasing the proportion of open access articles published in those journals versus non-open access articles, and also compared to author choice, where authors pay for these article processing charges themselves. So in 2024, we published 10 times more gold open access articles via transformative agreement. Also, for some other not traditionally well-funded subject areas, such as humanities and social sciences, transformative agreements have helped a lot to participate in open access, and therefore open access uptake has increased by 41%, up to 41% in 2024. And also our transformative agreements have an immediate impact on the country's open access output. We've seen very high increases in open access proportion for certain countries, or for actually all countries where we have a transformative agreement in place. I will show you those numbers for South Africa specifically in the last section. So I've already mentioned a bit the role of the transformative agreements, and just want to go into that a little bit more in this section. So just to summarize, a transformative agreement is a type of open access agreement that combines publishing and reading in those hybrid journals under one license and at one cost for publishing and for reading. And transformative agreements provide a path for 100% open access transition in an ideal world where all content is open access, so available for all to read without paying a subscription fee. So removing this burden from the authors improves research outcomes and societal impact. And yeah, these transformative agreements represent a practical and effective pathway to achieving global open access. So a transformative agreement enhances the benefits of open science and adds more layers to it. So a transformative agreement maximizes access to subscription content. It also helps institutions to control cost and budget, as these agreements are centrally negotiated. Also makes those budgets more sustainable, as they are negotiated long-term, usually over 3 years. And they are more equitable because negotiating those budget for this time span also helps the consortia to distribute budget across different disciplines and also to institutions of smaller size who may not have been able to participate in a transformative agreement on their own. Also, it saves time and effort, administrative effort to authors and to institutions who do not have to deal with an individual APC payments. And of course, authors may not have been able to publish open access at all previously to a transformative agreement, as the costs of the article processing charges may be prohibitive for many authors in countries that are not as well funded. So Springer Nature transformative agreements are driving the global transition. We now support researchers from over 3,700 institutions who have access to transformative agreements. However, our first transformative agreements, and that brings us also to policy questions. Most of the initial early transformative agreements were in Europe because they had early open access policies that mandate gold open access, and that also have dedicated funding behind them, so enabling transformative agreements early on in, for example, in the Netherlands, Poland, Germany, or Austria, in the UK, some of the earliest TAs with us. Most of them on a national level, and then some of the policies already prescribed transformative agreements or cooperation with publishers to implement those policies. And then followed also transformative agreements in other parts of the world. Now we have transformative agreements more on an institutional level in the US, on a national level in Southern Africa and in Northern Africa, as well as the Middle East, and also in Asia and Oceania. So number of TAs agreed by Springer Nature with partner has increased by 57% since 2022. And over 50% of Springer Nature articles are now open access. We, as a publisher, have the highest open access share of mixed model publishers. Mixed model publisher meaning that we still do have open access, also subscription content as well as open access content, whereas some other publishers started out initially as fully open access publishers already. So we've got the highest total share, and globally the share of open access articles is increasing every year. But also research integrity remains at the core of our mission, as also mentioned earlier, with a dedicated team preventing risks, resolving issues, and elevating integrity standards, because as the research landscape continues to evolve, with the impact of new technologies, we do need to focus on maintaining accuracy of research. As much as it offers opportunities, it also comes with risks. And we are actually the first global academic publisher sharing top-level information on our research integrity data for publishing. So this dedicated in-house team works to identify fraudulent submissions, including with the help of new technology. So we develop and enhance integrity tools and in-house systems using both AI and other technologies. To do that, we also train editors and researchers, and we continuously monitor and refine research policies to reflect evolving community standards. And we also actively prevent fraud by conducting in-depth analysis of networks like researcher networks, author networks, and papers. So now moving on to my last section, I hope I'm within the time frame, perhaps also to still answer some questions at the end. So I wanted to take you through some data showing the benefits of transformative agreements and open access on equity and impact of African research. So here we looked at the open access uptake, or what we call open access proportion of total articles. versus non-open access articles during the first 2 years of a transformative agreement in new agreement partners, including South Africa. The first year, 2022, South Africa did not yet have a transformative agreement in place, so the open access proportion was relatively low, 10%, only 10%. And then in the second and third year, we have seen, the first and the second year increase of open access proportion up to 91% out of total articles. So this shows how we can flip a whole country to open access. And this proportion is also high compared to some of the other countries we work with. It, of course, already depends on the initial open access share. So if a country starts with a lower open access share, the increase will be higher. So this is a white paper. You can also look this up on our website. It's called Accelerating Open Access at Scale. Look at 3 transformative agreements, and we have 4 examples. And so this transformative agreement makes South African research a lot more visible globally. But TA's transformative agreements also offer greater access to subscription content, as we cover also journals under the reading access that were not included for under the previous subscriptions for all institutions. So in South Africa, also in small institutions that maybe only subscribe to a couple of journals now have access to a lot more of, or to all hybrid journals within the Springer Nature journal portfolio, increasing access to subscription content by driving value and expanding access, which is enabled by the read component. Also, the usage of subscription content increased by 24% in the first year of the TA. So South African researchers have broader access to any content type, not only open access. And also access is expanded beyond the paywalls. There we can see a real-world impact of open access on accessibility and reach. So we see here the proportion of recognized versus anonymous access. So anonymous access means that authors may not have had access to this research previously because there was no subscription in place, perhaps via their institution. So under a transformative agreement, we see higher anonymous usage than recognized usage, and showing that more readers can now access this research. Especially in Africa and South America, researchers have experienced 13 times and 11 times higher download rates, respectively, per transformative agreement published article compared to subscription articles. So again, an example of greater equity of the research under open access. And this is actually here taken from the SUNLEC Transformative Agreement stats. Here we are looking at articles published under the agreement and their usage by country and in total. So on the right-hand side, we can see that anonymous usage is even higher for South African authored research under the transformative agreement by at 76%. And essentially, this chart has flipped from before to versus after the start of the TA, because previously it was around 25% of anonymous usage only, meaning all of these people are now able to access the content. And yeah, by country, of course, in the United States, more readers would have had subscription access to the content. There's a wider gap, but South Africa, now the increase is higher for the anonymous usage. And also when we look here at the global usage by top using countries, the map shows which continents most users came from. So Asia, most of authors accessing South African content. So all this demonstrates the broad global visibility of South African authored content in open access, and how also Africa can benefit almost the most from the greater equity and visibility of content African researchers have authored, but also they're able to access. And this is already the end of my presentation today. I hope this was useful. Let me know if you have any questions. Perhaps we have some moments. I'm not sure if anything has come through in the chat, or else you can send it to me by email. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johanna. Your presentation has highlighted the important role that open science plays in transforming the research landscape by promoting accessibility, collaboration, knowledge sharing, and increasing the visibility and impact of African research globally. We really appreciate how you have shared how researchers, institutions, and libraries can contribute towards a more inclusive and connected scholarly communication ecosystem. Thank you very much. We have a question for the colleagues who still have questions for Prof. Reddy. We are going to attach contact details for Prof. Reddy when we share her presentation. A question to Ms. Johanna. How can one access Springer Nature training or workshops on converting, developing a dissertation or thesis into a book for publication, or just writing a book?
Right. Yes?
No, he further says this appeared on a slide about integrity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so to publish a book chapter, you can get in touch with the books that I've got also a contact for open access books, if that's of interest. Of course, as I've shown, the open access benefits extend to books as well. So this person can probably help you the most when it comes to publishing open access books or books in general. I'm not currently aware of a specific training or seminar about publishing a book chapter, but there might be. So I'm actually going to get in touch with my colleague who might be able to advise on that. Sorry.
Okay, thank you so much. I do not see any hands raised. So I think we can continue with the next speaker. It is now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who will share insights and motivate our emerging researchers as they continue on their research journeys. Our speaker will inspire us on to think boldly, embrace opportunities, and recognize the impact that emerging scholars can make through their work. Our next speaker is Prof. Akshay Kumar Saha, and Prof. Saha is a professor and academic leader of research and higher degrees at the School of Engineering, at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. His work focuses on power systems and engineering education. He has published extensively in international journals and conferences and has received multiple research excellence in teaching awards. Please, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome Prof. Saha. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Thank you very much to Nontobeko for your kind words. Just about the academic leader research and higher degrees, I completed that task in April, so I'm now ex-past in that regard. And first of all, I express my gratitude to the University of KwaZulu-Natal and Library Services for giving me this opportunity. And I'm from electrical engineering, as you have heard, in power systems at the School of Engineering, Howard College campus. And the title of my presentation is A Conceptual Framework for Scholarly Excellence. Before I start, I would like to put my video off just to make sure the bandwidth is okay, because I'm getting a little bit of flickering here. I hope that is okay with you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So to our emerging researchers and young ones, I guess you are already overwhelmed hearing about so many things, starting with grant writing applications, publications, peer reviews, research and supervision, workloads, ethical aspect, usage of AI in research and dissertation writing. And also the last one was a very good presentation on open access and publication and all. So it feels like it's so challenging to be an academic, so many tasks that we do. Multitasking is always existing in our lives every single day from Monday to Sunday, and there is no holiday, no nothing. We work almost like 24/7 unless we really can disengage ourselves from such activities. But what I want to show you in my presentation is that to assure you that it's still possible to achieve most of the things that we all want to achieve. So there is no need to worry about the teaching workload, research workload, and then so many other activities when going to the community engagement and so on. The list is almost endless. So don't worry about that. I just want to show you a framework that I have conceptualized throughout my career and help you. If you find it yourself, you can utilize it, and you are always welcome to consult me outside this seminar. I will always be happy to assist you in the process, in terms of teaching and learning, in terms of research, in terms of publication, in terms of community engagement, in terms of editorial activities, and so on. So I'll show you my email address on the last slide. But before I go to my next slide, I want to go back to my title again. That is a conceptual framework for scholarly excellence, but we must emphasize that this word framework used in this title is not actually theoretical. It was developed by me. I drew it for myself. I got some success here and there that I will show you which were those and how I got there and so on. So it's actually real, something lived experience, and it's actually a journey towards the academic excellence. If I could say that was academic excellence that I have managed to achieve. But one thing is for sure, it was intentional, it was structured, and I believe it is repeatable as well. So that's where that importance comes in. If you are a bit attentive, if you want to follow it, I'm sure that you will benefit in the end. So what you are about to see here is the roadmap that I actually worked about, and I was encouraged to share this with you all. You can work it too if you find it useful. Again, in this regard, I want to mention that this is not a story about luck, but overcoming the hurdles that I have faced in my life, in my career, being determined to converting the struggles into something that we can talk about. It's a story about deliberate choices made over the decades, and until today it's working. I want to show how those choices were made and how you can also make those as your choices. So it is not moving. It's not moving. I have to redo it. I see. It's not moving. Is it moving on your side now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's good. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. So now this is the outline of my presentation today. First of all, it's a conceptual framework that I want to talk about, and then something will come from the industry foundation where I worked for about 2 decades, and how I transitioned into this academic environment, and then I tried to establish myself as an academic and what are those credibilities. And then I'll talk about the publications in top-tier journals, and including the peer review and editorial leaderships, and the professional achievements and recognition that came along. And in the most important one, which is what I developed for myself, to see where I wanted to see myself, is I gave it a name called RISE, R-I-S-E, RISE model. It's a personal roadmap that I used for myself. But this RISE model came from the 4 words. R is for roots, I is for integration, S is for scholarship, and E is for eminence. So this gives me the RISE model. And in this RISE model, there are stages that we have to go through, or steps we have to go through. We cannot skip any of those steps, but each and every step is achievable with some efforts in them. So the RISE model actually that I developed for myself is coming from these 4 letters, R-I-S-E, that I have already mentioned. The first one is roots. So before I came to this University of KwaZulu-Natal, I worked in an industry. It's a heavy core industry. I worked there for about 2 decades. And that is where I got my foundation in terms of academic knowledge that I have gathered in my schools and universities before I joined that industry, and amalgamated them with the operation and maintenance of the plants of that heavy industry. And then I got some experience in the process. So that industry foundation and expertise were there. That is where I find myself. So that is where I rooted myself. That's what made me to choose that word, roots were there. But if you are not, or you were not in industries, you were still in the academic environment from the very beginning, meaning you completed your undergraduate degree and then you continue to go for master's and PhD later on, you still have the roots, that's academic roots. And it's still workable. And many of our professors that we have heard and seen and met everywhere also have that root. They utilize those foundation from the academic institutions for their excellence in academic path. So the next one is the integration. So as I came from the industry after 20 years so to the academics, I had to make sure that I transition into academia smoothly, but it was not that smooth. It was challenging because first of all, it's a cultural shift. Everything is different. I had to learn the new norms. Even the words are different. Pedagogy was a word that I heard here for the first time in my life. There are new matrices of success. You have to publish. You have to go to the conferences. You have to do the community services, community engagement, and all those. So it's a very, very challenging. So we have to find ourselves in a situation sometimes. How do we transition ourselves, even if we are starting from the academic aspects, from undergraduate degree to master's to PhD straight away in one university or different universities? When we become an academic, it's stress transition. It's a lot of activities that we will be engaged with or in future. So we have to make sure that we leverage what we have from our roots and how we integrate them into the future. So the next one is the scholarship, which comes with most of the things are here in these days are related to publication. And that's why you have heard from Prof. Mutanga to Prof. Saraswati Reddy, and also going to the open access publication. We are emphasizing so much on publication these days. And with publication, there is this peer review, which was also mentioned by Prof. Mutanga as well. And there is something that is there at the bottom of that scholarship is the research rigor. If the research rigor is not there, it is not going to be possible to sustain in this publication environment these days. It's very, very challenging. Publishing here and there will not take us there where we want to be. We must also remember that these days with our publication, we want to build a citation record. We want to be recognized in the scholarly community, in the institute, nationally, internationally, and we want to be visible, which is a very challenging task unless we are strategizing ourselves accordingly. And the last word, E, came from the eminence, as I have mentioned earlier. Eminence is the destination for all of us if we want to be in academia. And it is where we might see ourselves in editorial leadership, meaning the editor of a journal that you have heard from Prof. Mutanga, Professor Saraswati Reddy as well. I'm also editor-in-chief of a Q1 journal, so editorial leadership, professional ranks, awards, international recognitions, all those things are supposed to come there. And it should be a natural consequence of doing what we have been doing in the previous stages, like what was there in the roots, or how we integrated ourselves into the academia and built our career path in terms of research and publication, together with teaching as well. Because without teaching, we can't actually go to the next step of research. So that eminence is also one of those things that are very, very highly engaged in this matter. So in this regard, that I want to mention one thing, that each stage actually builds on the last, and no step can be skipped, but every step is achievable. We must remember that all of these are very, very important. And in the end, no matter what we do, starting from the roots, industry foundation or expertise, academic entry or credibility, adapting ourselves into the academic disciplines, publication and editorial leadership, and all international recognition, we must make sure that our endeavor is to make some positive impacts into the society. So the next one I want to talk about is the industry foundation, which I have had, and then the decision to transition. How did I get there? To share that part, first of all, you see the gain and reserve. So I have two panels here. One of them I called it as gain and preserve. The next one will come as the transition part. So the gain and reserve is very, very important. Preserve is very, very important. If you remember that Madam Minentle, first of all, mentioned that word, preserve your knowledge. So that is what it is actually here. So coming from industries, I could rely on my practical knowledge that I gathered together with the domain expertise, and academic staff can also do the same. There is nothing to worry about that, but we have to make sure that you have your knowledge, you have your domain expertise. And not only that, you have to sharpen them up on a continuous basis. And that is why sometimes we use that continuous professional development. And it's very, very important. First of all, we must make sure that we know that technology is evolving these days so fast. We must keep ourselves at the same pace. Otherwise, we will find ourselves getting lost. And that will happen very easily. So always engage with a real world problem solving and gather some experience in that one. If we are not solving real world problems, we will again not find ourselves in the real world. We will find ourselves in the rooms. Our dissertations will be in the shelves, and that's all. But if we want to make a difference in the community, making positive impacts, we must make sure that our problem solving is related to the real world. And this real world problem solving will also help you to develop your professional networks. And again, it will happen across sectors. You heard the word interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary research, and so on from the other presenters. So when you do that, you definitely will be connected to the professionals across sectors. This will complement your expertise in many areas and will bring new collaborations as well. The next one is the credibility, and how you build your credibility is one of the crucial aspects. And it doesn't really matter where you work, in which discipline or which sector of the industries, but definitely you have to have the credibility that you build in the process that will bring the respect from your peers. So we have to take that one as a serious aspect. The next one is the awareness of practical research gaps. Again, no matter whether you are in industry or in academic institutes, you must make sure that when you are developing a research proposal for your own research or your postgraduate students, master's or PhD, you know the research gaps. And it should be a practical research gap. And that comes from the reading of those recent articles that are being published in different top quality journals. So we have to take that one again as a serious one, that we are aware of practical research gaps. And then the common ones that we most of the times talk about, that we must be resilient, we must be disciplined. Yes, obviously we have to be, otherwise nothing will be sustainable. And the word ethics again comes back here. Professor Azwati Reddy has mentioned about that. I will mention about this ethics again, but not that much in brief, but in a different way though. So from my side, what I can share with you, that I spent a good half of my career in industry, about 2 decades, and I never considered that there was a gap in my CV. So if you are being in academia all the way from your undergraduate degree, you should not consider that you don't have industry experience. But if you can solve the real world problems, it should be okay. If you can solve problems that the society needs to be solved, then you are okay. If you are aware of the practical research gaps, you are okay. But if you want to do some other research that doesn't connect to any of those, then there will be no impact onto the society. Right? Let's go to the right-hand side of this panel. It's not moving, something is wrong. Now in terms of transition, what happened as I came from industry, like I mentioned, it was challenging. I had to accept everything as a beginner and with pride. So I had to tell myself that I had to now learn the new language, new words there, pedagogy and all those stuffs, and engage myself with these teaching and learning and supervision activities and publication and all those. The culture, norms, everything are different here. And that's also different from different disciplines to discipline. It was very, very challenging for me to adapt myself in the process. That is why I mentioned that many of you might already be finding it very difficult to be an academic in this environment. So when it comes with that, you have to be humble at some point of time, embrace yourself, and try to accommodate yourself in the process so that you know what the academic culture is, what the norms are, what the language they talk about, and all those, and try to identify yourself in this environment and find out your research area. And when we talk about the research area, as we know, most of us start to like some areas when we are in our undergraduates, then when we go for our masters and PhDs, then we know this is the area I like and this is the research area I want to continue my research in future as well. And you do so knowingly and make sure that it's a niche area, and you should be trying to be a person to go to about any problem in that area of research. In this regard, just an advice, don't try to be a researcher who engage or puts himself or herself in whatever way he or she can. For example, like I mentioned that I'm editor-in-chief of a journal. So I recently received an email as someone wants to be an associate editor of that journal. But when I looked at their research expertise area, it's all the way everywhere. like from example, drug delivery to wound healing, to renewable energy, to nanomaterial, to biomedical, everywhere. But the journal he was requesting for associate editorship was in energy research. So it doesn't make sense. So I could not accept him as an associate editor. But if he was engaged with the renewable energy that he mentioned as one of those research areas, I could have taken him or her. So it's very important to stay in your research area and build that one as a niche area of your research. Find out something new that will be easily visible, and make sure that we'll commit ourselves to lifelong learning alongside teaching. Again, I want to mention here that teaching is something sometimes some of us do not like much, especially when it comes to the marking. We start to say many words about that. But I believe, although I came from industry, that if we don't do our teaching well, we cannot think of doing quality research, because our students see ourselves as a good teacher in the first place, that I can also do some good research. And that's how they come to us for our masters and for their masters and PhD. So we must make sure that our teaching is well and professional so that we can attract postgraduate students more easily. So coming to the next point is seeking a mentor. If you are in academia and thinking about what you can do, what you have to do, sometimes overwhelmed, sometimes underwhelmed, you don't know what to do, who to go to, and all those. It's a challenging thing. And it's not only true for young academics or emerging academics. Like for me, I came here 15, 16 years. 2 years ago, I wrote a paper, and I was the sole author of that one. And then I submitted to a journal, Q1 journal, and then it came for a revision with 11 reviewers' comments. I found myself in a situation. How do I deal with this? So much of comments and to respond and make sure that the paper doesn't get rejected. So I was feeling that I needed a mentor. I did not have any mentor in the first place. And up until now, I don't have any mentor. I learned everything by myself, most of the things. Yes, I have had supervisors during my postgraduate studies and so on. So getting a mentor and having support from the mentors is very, very helpful at some point of time. Sometimes we might find ourselves that we are self-sufficient. Sometimes we might find ourselves in a situation. So look for a mentor and set up a plan for scholarly publication. For example, it can be 3 to 5 years. What you want to do, what you want to publish. Is it conference papers? Is it journal papers? What type of journal? And so on. So that transition will take you there if you plan it properly. Now, after your master's degree, if you have done your doctoral degree, or if you are already registered in your for your doctoral degree, is well and good. But just to emphasize again that this doctoral degree is not just a degree or academic achievement. It's actually non-negotiable these days. It's a serious serious thing in academic careers, in most of the disciplines, in most of the institutes. So I consider a doctoral degree as a passport to the academia. And if you already hold one, it's great. Maybe you are already publishing from your PhD dissertation, and maybe you should now think about optimizing your thoughts into publications, and not only publication, quality publications, meaning Q1 journals if possible with high impact factors. And if you don't have PhD, but you are already working, you might think that it will be challenging to do part-time PhD or doctoral studies. It's challenging. Yes, I will agree with you, but don't be afraid. There are many, many students who completed their PhDs while they are working, even in our institutes as well. And you can do that too. And I also have supervised many, many students who completed their PhDs while they are working, and that too they completed in 2 years, meaning 4 semester to 5 semester. Not only that, they published 6 to 7 Q1 journals. This is one of those achievements that I wanted to mention to assure you that you can achieve it. Remember that's what I was trying to mention in my title slide, that you can achieve 6 to 7 Q1 journal in 4 to 5 semesters and get your degree while it's sometimes challenging, but it's actually not that challenging. So you just have to encourage yourself for that part-time study while you are employed in employment. It's always always possible. So there is nothing to worry about. If you need any guidance, general guidance, you are always welcome to communicate with me. When you have the doctoral study completed, you are publishing, it's always good to get yourself aligned with a research group, because a research group will bring a lot of advantages to you. So you will know more about the discipline, the researches that are going on in that discipline or in the university. We must acknowledge that when you go to the research group, there will be some collaborations. It will accelerate your scholarly development. It will expand your networks. And in many cases, we also should know that if we are working in isolation, it might become one of those enemies that might kill our academic productivity. So joining a research group will provide you accountability. It will give you the opportunity to co-author some of those papers in conferences and journals. It will also give you some access to research funding. It will give you access to your research networks. Most importantly, you might get some supports, especially the emotional support, which you will definitely not get if you are working alone on your own. And you will also get some strategies in terms of how to excel in academia and in terms of research and publication supervision and all those aspects. Taking to the third one, which is the conferences. So when we are young and emerging academics, we must try to attend and publish and present our research findings in conferences. We should start with local conferences, national conferences, and then we should aim for international conference. We should make ourselves visible. And this will again help us to share our thinking, expose our work to potential collaborators, journal editors you might meet in those conferences. And it will help you to build your scholarly identity. And it will prepare you for writing top quality journal papers, because once you write conference articles, then this will be reviewed obviously by those reviewers, and they will give you some feedbacks, review comments, and you can learn how the reviewers are commenting, how to address and make improvements in your manuscript. So you can go to the next step of journal publication. And from there, as we have mentioned, that when we are joining a research group, we will get some support from funding, but at some point of time, you will have to prepare your own research group where other people will join, and you will have to have your own funding, which is what Prof. Mutamba was mentioning. So you need to learn how to write grants, research funding applications. So this is how you prepare at that stage. So it will give another advantages when a research is seen as a funded research. A journal paper is mentioned or a conference paper is mentioned that it was funded research. It is viewed as a different one. So people didn't just fund a research, people definitely reviewed the funding application. They saw some value in that research, and that's why it was funded. So people will have respect, immediate respect on your research and on you and your research group as well. So to go to the next slide, I will tell you to emphasize that whatever credibility you have, industry or academia, it will give you the access where you want to be. But you need to be consistent, and that consistency should come as scholarly output, different forms of output, publication, student supervision, and so on. Now we are going to one of those things that we talk about all the time. You have already heard about that even this morning, but just to repeat it quickly, I'm talking about something called, I gave it a name, publication ladder. There are journal papers these days. We talk about quality publications. So when we talk about quality publications, we talk about journal publications, and the journal papers in the world are classified as Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. And there are other journals which are not classified as well. So Q1 journals are top 25 journal papers. Q2 are book journals. intermediate ones. Q3 are also acceptable, and we find that they help us to build our research momentum. And then Q4 is the lowest one, below 25%. And sometimes we suggest that we start here as a young or emerging researcher. And sometimes we also suggest that we work way up and that we do strategically. And our aim is to publish in Q1 journals, not only in Q1 journals with high impact factor, but sometimes I found that it's also possible to start at Q1 directly instead of going up all the way. I learned it from just simple examples. I remember this is now World Cup soccer time. In one of the years, there was probably that year Germany was the champion. I forgot the year in which year Germany was. That young player from Germany who was introduced for the first time as in the national team in the final match. And he came and he scored the goal, and Germany won the Soccer World Cup. So you can be the top performer if you are trained well. So I started that type of experiment with my students, undergraduate students. I got some success. 4 research articles we have published in Q1 journals. They were literature review, not research, but literature review. 4 of them were published in Q1 journals, undergraduate so far. So you can target, but you have to spend more time with yourself, with your students, if you are expecting something out of them and the process. Otherwise, if you want to go from Q4 to Q3, Q2, Q1, it's also fine. There is nothing wrong in that. But it depends on what you want to achieve and how you want to achieve and so on. And in terms of top tier journal Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, in terms of our UKZN productivity units, you all know, maybe some of you also don't know. If you publish in a Q1 journal, you get 120 PUs. Q2, Q3, Q4 all gives us 60 PUs. But inside Q1, if the impact factor of the journal is greater than 10, you get 180 PUs, 180 productivity units. So you can imagine, as a professor, if you publish in Q1 journal with impact factor of 10, you are done for your performance management and so on. And if you are an emerging and young researcher, you achieved it so much, 3 times more than what you needed to achieve. So target that Q1 journal. That's why I wrote that one as a target tier. So what happens in terms of publication in those top tier journals? So I tried to see how we can generalize. We have heard all those advices from our top tier researcher from Kutanga, Professor Slati Reddy, and so on, and also from other researchers in other seminars and general advices. I tried to put them in very simple words. First of all, pick up the right journal. We need to know which journal I'm targeting, which Q1 journal, what are the scopes, and all those. Even so that reading about the guide to authors and so on, you have to do that. So when you picked up the right journal, you make sure that you know about the journal, you know about what your content is, how they are matching and so on. When you are done with that, now you are going to write the abstract. We must make sure that the abstract is very, very well written. I consider the abstract as a movie summary. Many of us, when you go to buy the movie ticket in those, Star Kinect and all, we read the movie summary. And if you are not happy with the movie summary, don't buy the ticket. So they don't make the business out of our interest. So if our abstract is not good, the journal editor or associate editor or academic editor, whoever it is, viewing your submission for the first time, will reject it in 90 seconds. So 250 words of abstract, it will take about 90 seconds, 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever, it will be rejected. So make sure that your abstract is a top class abstract. And then structure your article properly, starting from the title to introduction to literature review to methodology, research results, analysis to conclusion, even the list of references. That structure is very, very important. It has to be precise. If anything is wrong, again, people will reject it. You heard from Prof. Mutanga that 90% of the journals were rejected. But I will give you an example of what happened to us with our RISE model that we used for myself and for my students. And again, if you get a chance to revise your module manuscript, you heard again from Prof. Mtanga that you might get this rejected if you did not address the reviewers' comments properly. So you have to respond to reviewers' comments, very, very precious. And if we did all those things, what happened to us, our students? We got all our papers accepted so far. All, not a single paper that we submitted to journal were rejected. Yes, it was rejected by one journal, but it was accepted in another journal. And it was very interesting. Initially, we were targeting a Q3 journal, that this journal will definitely take this paper. We are confident. We submitted. It was rejected. So we improved that paper. And then we submitted to a Q1 journal, and it was accepted. So sometimes something can happen like that. So don't be discouraged. Don't be disheartened, and so on. Make sure that you put your effort and you will be there. You will achieve what you want to achieve. You can actually achieve 100%. And we have achieved with all my students. And that's why I even was talking to one of my students just 2 days ago. I was telling that I'm all proud of you and your colleagues, your students, like in the cohort, all, because you all got all your publications accepted and top-tier journals, Q1. So let's go to see what happened to myself and my students. Like I said, life is challenging when we are in academia, especially when we are young, emerging, so many things coming, teaching load, students are complaining, academy, my line manager is not happy, this and that, I have to do this, I have to do that, there are deadlines and so on. So you can see, I started my publication in 2007 without knowing those Q1, Q2, Q3 at that time. I got that one publication, it was in Q1 journal, luckily. Then after that, in 2008, there was nothing. 2009, one publication, it was also in Q1. And then there was nothing in between 2009 and 11, 2010 gap. So it can happen like that, a lot of gaps. But you should keep yourself with the mindset that I want to be there, I will be there. How I can be there? I need to have a proper strategy. So from 2011, you can see there was a gap of 2 years, no publication in 2 years, 2012 and 13, 2014, another one, a Q1 journal, 2015, another Q1, and so on. It started like that until we come to the year 2020, which was a very difficult year for all of us. It was the whole world, the COVID year. So we were sitting at home, from the month of March, in the 4th week of March, if I'm not wrong. And from there, you can see the acceleration. So we got 13 papers, Q1, with my postgraduate students. 2021, we got 14 papers. 2022, 22 papers, Q1, and so on. But again, the challenging year was 2023. We got only 4 papers or so. 2024 improved, again 11. 2025, I got 18. 2026, I got 10 so far. This is the month of June, and so on. So we will find ourselves in challenging situation many, many times, but we cannot give up. We keep utilizing our strategy, our conceptual framework, that we must be rooted with our fundamental expertise and foundation. Then we integrate ourselves. We make sure that we aim scholarly excellence, and we will definitely achieve our eminence, no matter how many years we will have to wait. And most of these journals are here Q1. And how many I will show you with this on this graph now. As you can see, we have so far 104 publications from myself and my students. And out of those 100 papers, I got 72 Q1 journal papers, and Q2 11, Q3 39, Q4 5, and unclassified 3. And out of those Q3 and Q4 journals, they actually were not intended. We did not want to submit to those Q3 and Q4 journals. What happened? We submitted to conferences, and those conferences were published, conference proceedings were published as journal articles. So that's how we got there. Yes, 1 or 2 Q3 and Q4 articles there. So our aim was always to publish in Q1 journals. We also published in those high impact factor journals, with great impact factor of greater than 10, meaning we got 180 PUs and so on. And you can see the percentage there on that pie chart. Q1 is giving us 61% and so on. So you also can achieve that. Together with that, we also did a lot of peer reviews. These are some of the records. Other records are lost, actually. When Web of Science came into the scenario, I started to record them. And what I could recall from there, 147 peer reviews are recorded, 332 editorial records are there. And then I also reviewed many papers, about 500 international conference papers were reviewed by myself, together with other experiences came as recognition to me. I was very grateful to that. General chair of an international conference several times, twice, advisory committee, chief guest speech, keynote speech, technical program committee members of international proceedings committee, and so on. So if you keep yourself engaged in that RISE model, things will keep coming. You won't be able to get time to do many of these activities. You will have to say no at some point of time. Like yesterday, I said, no, I can't review anymore in this month of June. Only I can do it in July, to one of those requests. And I also was busy with faculty training, meaning I was training the faculties in other countries. And not only that, mentoring, I was also busy and engaged with mentoring of young ones, young students, young postgraduate students, young academics, and so on. Not only that, I'm also engaged in mentoring countries. You know, I'm in engineering, so we are accredited by professional body. We call it Engineering Council of South Africa. So Engineering Council of South Africa is affiliated to a global organization called International Engineering Alliance, IEA. That IEA affiliates countries how engineering profession is being maintained and monitored in terms of profession, starting from the engineers and engineering institution and in the industries. So we also mentor countries. I'm also in that training and mentoring groups. Together with, I was in the committee of European Education and Training and the counterpart committee in South Africa as well for young ones. So there are a lot of things that you can find yourself engaged with if you are engaged yourself with that RISE model that I followed for myself. So all these things now took me, I gave some hints how I got to the conference papers reviews and other things, as well as journal paper review and editorial activities and so on, how it progressed. So I started as a reviewer, conference paper reviewers. You can also start. You will get review requests once you start publication. So you will be viewed as a reviewer, possible reviewer, potential reviewer. And how they view you yourself? There is something called web reviewer locator. These days we use softwares to find out potential reviewers associated with the content of the manuscript that is submitted by an author or a number of authors for a conference or journals. So they will find you as a reviewer. When you receive a request, you just do it graciously. It's not paid. It's for free. We build our career being a reviewer in this whole process of publication. You must remember, or we must all remember that, you know, I also submitted a paper like I showed and got published. And how it got published? It was reviewed in the first place. And if there was no review, we call them predatory journals where we don't go. So we also put our reports in the process of review for free. When we are doing reviews, we will gain experience. The next step will take us to the editorial board member. And in the editorial board member, you sometimes can request to one of those editors of a journal in your area where you really have expertise, not like the example that I gave you, drug delivery to wound healing to renewable energy. In your area of expertise, write an email to the editorial board member. Like I also receive, I sometimes find it suitable. So we take them as editorial board member. Sometimes they also request you, seeing your profile, you know, it gets indexed by Google and other research gate, Google Scholar, and also Web of Science. So everything is visible. The editor-in-chief or the other journal editors will see your profile and they will request you to be in the editorial board member. So you build up again. So if you go to the next one, you can be an associate editor, which can be a higher position in some journals. So in some journals, it may not be, depends on the journal. There are other roles together with associate editor. Some of them call it assistant editor, some of them just editor, a section editor, commissioning editor. Different types of editorship are there. I actually sat as or worked as all of those: associate editor, academic editor, of Q1 journals, commissioning editor, guest editor these days are also there. So you can request for those once you have the required expertise that you have gained through the process. Remember, we cannot skip any of those processes: root, integration, scholarly excellence, and then eminence. So we have to go through the steps again in this process. So starting as a reviewer, editorial board member, associate editor, account, assistant editor, section editor, and so on. Then you can become an editor-in-chief of journal, and you again should target editor-in-chief of a Q1 journal, which I was very lucky or fortunate, in other words, to be one of those. And it was a great experience, a lot of learning curve as well too, out in the process. So you should aim for those, and definitely you can achieve all of them. Now, as a young academic or emerging academic, all of you, I'm sure, are thinking when I will become a full professor. I also was thinking at some point of time, but not that desperately honest, because I was always having one thing in my mind, that I was from academia. I came here in the middle of my career. It's okay if I don't get full professorship in my career, but I must deliver in terms of teaching and learning. I must deliver in terms of quality publication. I must deliver in terms of quality supervision, not just graduating, publishing in quality journals with my postgraduate students, undergraduate students, and so on, and also bring the other aspects into the scenario. So what are those? So substantial publication in Q1 and Q2 journals. So that is what we need to do. So aim for that from now on. Target Q1 and Q2. You remember that I was giving you the example of that German soccer player who scored the first goal in his life, playing for the first time in the national team in the soccer World Cup final. So you can also do that.
Excuse
and
me,
make sure.
Prof.
Yes.
We've run out of time.
No, I'll just finish quickly.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I'm already there. So you make sure that your citation count is there and you have strong high H index. But about H index, you must also know that H index depends on the discipline. If you go to some discipline, you find that H index is 90. If you come to my discipline, you find that H index is 9 instead of 90. So you should aim for external grants. You heard about that from Prof. Ntanga. You also plan accordingly for your postgraduate students, your honor students, masters and PhD. Later on, you will supervise postgraduate, postdoctoral fellows as well. And then you should aim for your international recognition, keynote speech and invitation as well. And then you should think about, Prof. Saraswati Reddy has mentioned how you contribute to the faculty and university governance and all. And I remember that I mentioned about this teaching excellence. Without teaching, you can't succeed in supervision and research. And the research funding is again important together with the community service. And what you can achieve in terms of scholarly milestones, you can achieve the editor-in-chief of a quality journal. You can become our top publishers in our university, which I got several times, 5 times, I guess. Best Lecturer Award, I also got that. It was also the grace from our students and of course the university that I got the opportunity from. And in terms of supervision and capacity building, I was blessed to have some good students for my postgraduates. Many of them are chief engineers in ESCOM and other organizations at the moment. So it was also connected with capacity building, and they are serving the community. And then definitely you can achieve the full professor designation like I was lucky to have, and you get the keynote speech offers or request, and you should apply for NRFDHET research rating. Those ratings are there, P rating, ABC, and all those other ratings as well. For young ones, there is Y rating. And you could write book chapters, edited volumes later on when you get time. or established, and you can also do the international collaboration in terms of funding and community engagement as well. And the last that icon that you see, you should try always to go up all the way. But sometimes life is challenging. It will not be going up all the way. Some years will not be that good, but we should not give up. In that regard, I want to give you 10 principles. Just in short, you can get the PowerPoint presentation from me later on if you want. So start with a niche. Don't just be writing anything just to get a publication, just to make sure that you have the PM requirements met and so on, or make your CV list long and so on. And read regularly. To do a proper research, you have to read recently published articles with some attention as well, and write every day. You have to write every day. If you don't write, then you lose the skill of writing quality articles. And then you have to target strategically what you want to publish, with what topic you want to be emerging in next time, and so on. And then you have to collaborate with your colleagues, and then review conference papers, journal papers, and so on, even the rating applications and so on. And ethical citation is very important. Like I mentioned, that citation is very important these days. So sometimes we find that the authors are citing unethically, meaning they have a list of references with 20 total papers, but they have their own papers in numbers, which is not good. So it should not be more than 20% or so. That's unethical if you are citing your own papers all the time unnecessarily, and the papers that are not related. And make sure again that you getting mentorship, and you also mentoring someone, because we need to share our knowledge with the young generations and so on. That is one of those aims that we are doing in this seminar throughout the UKZN library services and so on. And make sure that you leverage your expertise that you have got from industry and academics, and you need to persist relentlessly. There is no way we can give up. I'm repeating that word several times. So these are the 10 principles that we also followed in our career path, myself and my students as well. Just to remind you, one other thing that we also followed is, I called it a 3C triangle. I have triangles for all the letters from A through Z. Like, for example, for A, attendance, attitude, and attention. For this semester, if you did not attend, if you did not listen attentively, and so on, nothing would have happened. If we break one of those sides of the triangle, things are broken. So it's courage and commitments are necessary. And if we are not continuous in what we are doing, then nothing will happen. So courage, commitment, and continuity are second. Again, just to emphasize on one of those, this is not it's a method that can bring, but I showed you in terms of our achievement, a lived experience, a journey that we worked together with my students from undergraduate to postgraduate, and colleagues who helped me in the process. So I thank you very much. This is my email address, saha@ukzn.ac.za. Thank you for listening to me. Your patience is highly appreciated. And if you have any questions which ran out of time, you are welcome to email me for anything. I will definitely respond to those questions, comments, or suggestions. Thank you very much once again to library services as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. Saha. Your presentation has provided us with valuable perspectives on the foundations that support impactful scholarship, and has highlighted the importance of building strong frameworks that guides researchers towards excellent innovation and meaningful contributions to knowledge. We have a few questions. Time is not on our side, but we can attend to these few questions. And then after the questions, we have a quiz. We'll just ask one question because time is against us. And then we will close the session. So the first question says, does it mean, Okay, there's a question above this one. Okay. How can one publish through conferences? And then a follow-up question says, does it mean submitting through a conference has disadvantages?
How can one publish through a conference? You know, these days, a lot of conferences are going on across the whole world. For example, I've been in engineering. One of the best organization in engineering is called IEEE. IEEE itself is organizing 1,300 conferences in a year across the world. So I'm sure no matter in whatever discipline you are in, they are definitely hosting some conferences in your area of research. So look for those advertisements, submit there. And once you submit your paper there, you get it either accepted or rejected or for revision. So you can publish in that way. And it's not a disadvantage to publish in a conference paper. I also have published a lot of conference papers, about 120 or so. So it's good practice actually, even to publish in conference paper in the beginning, because it trains us how to write scholarly articles in the first place. Once we learn that rope, then we can go to the journal article publication.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Another question says, as a first-time reviewer, what is the advantage of waiting period to receive feedback on the evaluation of a manuscript?
As a first-time reviewer or first-time author? Because a reviewer does not get any receipt or doesn't get, the question is not that clear to me. Can you read it again?
Okay, maybe Jerome, can you please clarify? You meant a reviewer or author? Okay, while we are waiting for Jerome, one last question. Does the H-index play a role in the NRF rating application process?
Yes, it does. It does play a role in not only in NRF rating application process, but also in our promotion at UKZN. If we want to get promoted from lecturer to senior lecturer to associate professor and professor as well. But again, I remind to all of us that H-index is related to disciplines. In one discipline, you might find that someone has 90. I saw 90. And in my discipline, I saw 9 as well. And both are acceptable, equivalent somehow. So it depends in which discipline we are.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Jerome says reviewer. He was invited to a review, to review a manuscript, but he doesn't know if
how many days
he gets. If what he did was correct.
Oh, okay, okay. Sometimes some of the journals do not get back to the reviewers after the reviewer has submitted his or her report to the journal. They don't get back to the reviewer whether the paper was finally accepted or not. They keep it confidential. But there are some journals, they inform the reviewers that this is the journal manuscript that you reviewed. Finally, it has been accepted for publication and now it is online. So sometimes as a reviewer, we might not know what happened to the manuscript in the end. So it's possible that way, that he did not hear anything. But if we are interested, we can go to the website of that journal and we can find out if that paper was published or not. If it was not published, we should just assume that it was finally not accepted for publication.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Colleagues, now I'm going to ask one question for a quiz. You can type it on the chat. The first person who answered correctly will win a prize. We'll get in touch with them and organize on how we will get the gifts to them. Probably we'll send it to the nearest UKZN library where they can be able to collect. Now, the question is, can you please give me a name of a speaker that spoke about open science and innovation. Okay, I think we have an answer. We have an answer from the first correct answer that we got was from Carl Martin. Carl, can you please send me the details of which campus you are based on? Then we will make arrangement for you to get your prize. Thank you so much. Now, thank you so much for all the insightful presentations and the engaging discussions throughout this session. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker who will deliver the closing remarks and bring our program to a meaningful conclusion. Our closing remark speaker will be delivered by Dr. Roshni Peta. She is a portfolio manager for core services and special collections at the University of KwaZulu-Natal Library Services, with over 30 years experience in academic library leadership positions. In this role, she provides strategic leadership, manages staff, budget operations, and library facilities. Can I please not read the whole bio and just take it over to Dr. Peter for the closing remarks. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Nanto. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, researchers, students, and members of the university community. As we come to the close of this research fair themed Future Ready Scholars Beyond Research Towards Impact, it's my privilege to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of UKZN Library Services. So throughout the morning, we've had the opportunity to engage with a range of research and teaching experiences, to exchange ideas across the disciplines, and to reflect on the important contributions being made by our academic community. Events such as this research fair remind us not only of the depth and breadth of research being conducted at our institution, but also the power of collaboration and shared intellectual engagement. They create a space where knowledge is not only presented, but actively discussed, challenged, and refined, ultimately strengthening the culture of research and inquiry at UKZN. So firstly, I'd like to express our sincere gratitude to our speakers, Prof. Matunga, Prof. Reddy, Prof. Saha, and Ms. Kuhn. Thank you for sharing your expertise, insights, and experiences. Your candid and insightful reflection on the realities of research funding, research supervision, publishing, and teaching is appreciated. Your willingness to share not only your successes, but also the challenges you navigate has provided invaluable perspective and inspiration to us all. Your contributions have enriched this engagement and deepened our collective understanding of the academic journey. Our sincere thanks also goes to the Director of UKZN Library Services, Dr. Notlatla Nkobo, for the warm welcome, and to our Program Director, Mrs. Nanto Sikosana, for guiding us seamlessly through the proceedings. To our attendees, staff, students, and guests, thank you for your participation, thoughtful questions, and enthusiasm. Research thrives through dialogue and shared discovery, and your presence has contributed greatly to this success. Special appreciation is also extended to the organizing committee and all the support teams behind the scenes. Planning and delivering an event of this nature requires coordination, and your hard work made today possible. So as we leave today, it's important to recognize that today is not an end point, but rather a continuation of ongoing conversations and collaborations. The ideas exchanged, the connections made, and the insights gained here today have the potential to extend far beyond this event. So I encourage all of you to carry these engagements forward, to build new partnerships, to explore new research opportunities, and to contribute meaningfully to the advancement of knowledge. Thank you once again to everyone who contributed to making this research fair a success. I wish you all a wonderful day further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Panther. Thank you, colleagues. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.